My name is Mara Bennett. I'm 31 years old, and the day my uncle tried to take my grandmother's house from me, he stood beneath the carved seal of the county probate court and told a judge that I had manipulated a dying woman. He said it slowly, carefully, like he had practiced it in front of a mirror until the lie stopped sounding like a lie. My mother stared at the floor. My father kept both hands folded over his stomach. 3 relatives sat behind my uncle as if the benches had already been divided into sides. I counted 7 seconds before the judge spoke. 7 long seconds in which my uncle looked at me and smiled. By noon, he believed the house on Hawthorne Street would be placed under his control. By 3 that afternoon, he had lost his claim to it. Before the hearing ended, he had also lost the money my grandmother had left him, the development deal he had arranged behind our backs, and the version of himself he had spent years presenting to our family. He thought he was walking into court to break my grandmother's final decision. What he did not understand was that the court challenge itself was the one thing she had warned him never to do. But I need to back up, because the story did not begin in that courtroom. It began in a quiet brick house with a crooked 3rd step, a blue envelope in a kitchen drawer, and a woman who understood her son better than any of us did. Some truths do not need shouting. They only need someone patient enough to keep the record. If you have ever been treated like the least important person in your own family, only to discover that someone had seen your value all along, you will understand why this story still sits so heavily with me. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from and whether you have ever had a relative mistake your silence for weakness. Stay with me, because the rule my grandmother attached to that house sounded simple when I first heard it. It was not simple at all. I worked in the county land records office in Bellwether, Pennsylvania, a town with 1 courthouse, 2 grocery stores, and a main street that looked almost exactly the same in winter as it had when I was 10. My official job title was Document Examination Specialist. Nobody in my family ever remembered that. To them, I was a filing clerk. That was the phrase my Uncle Grant used. Sometimes he called me the paper girl. Sometimes he asked whether I had spent another exciting afternoon alphabetizing deeds. He did not know that my work involved tracing ownership disputes through decades of transfers, checking legal descriptions against survey maps, catching forged signatures, identifying altered dates, and finding the one missing document that changed who owned what. He did not know because he never asked. Grant believed jobs mattered only when they came with an office large enough for visitors to notice. He had one of those offices. It sat on the 6th floor of a glass building near the interstate, above a dental group and a company that sold industrial pumps. A brass plate outside his door read Bennett Property Holdings, though most of what the company held was debt promises and 3 commercial buildings bought with money that had originally belonged to my grandfather. Grant called himself a developer. My grandmother called him busy. That was her word when she did not want to criticize someone. Busy. "He's been very busy lately," she would say when Grant missed her birthday. "He must be busy," she would say when he did not answer her calls. I learned early that in our family, the gentlest words often carried the sharpest meaning. My father, Paul, was Grant's younger brother by 4 years. Dad had worked for a regional insurance company for 27 years. He was steady, cautious, and tired in a way that seemed permanent. Grant made decisions. Dad agreed with them. That was how their relationship had worked since childhood. Grant chose which friends were acceptable, which family trips mattered, which investments were smart, which stories got repeated, and which mistakes were forgiven. Dad rarely challenged him. When he did, Grant became quiet, not angry, quiet. He would look at Dad with patient disappointment until Dad began correcting himself. My mother, Diane, hated conflict so much that she treated the truth like a lit candle in a dry room, something dangerous that had to be put out before it spread. She believed peace meant nobody said the thing everyone already knew. At family dinners, she watched faces more than she listened to words. If Grant insulted me, she changed the subject. If my grandmother corrected him, Mom began clearing plates. If Dad started to disagree with his brother, she touched his wrist beneath the table. That touch had ended. More conversations than I could count. Grant had one daughter, my cousin Natalie, who was 28 and worked in marketing for a hospital network. Natalie was not cruel. She was simply raised inside Grant's version of the world, where everything arrived before she needed to ask for it. Her college tuition, her first car, the down payment on her condominium, a position at Bennett Property Holdings that she left after 6 months because the work felt too administrative. When I was 24, I rented a one-bedroom apartment above a pharmacy for $680 a month. The bedroom window faced a brick wall. The radiator knocked all winter. At Thanksgiving, Grant asked why I had not purchased a home. "I'm saving," I said. "For what?" "A down payment." He laughed softly and looked around the table as if I had made a joke for everyone's benefit. "Mara, by the time you save enough, houses will cost twice as much." Grandma Evelyn set down her fork. "She understands property better than you think." Grant smiled at her. "I'm sure she understands the filing side. I remember the smell of sage stuffing and the orange candle my mother had placed near the window. I remember counting the tiny bubbles rising through my glass of sparkling water. 9 before 1 reached the surface, then 12. Then I stopped counting because Grandma touched my knee beneath the table. Not to silence me, to remind me that I did not need to answer. Grant looked at me and delivered the line he would repeat for years. "Paper doesn't make you family." It had nothing to do with what we were discussing. That was the strange part. He said it because Grandma had defended my work, and he wanted to reduce the thing I was good at into something cold and meaningless. "Paper doesn't make you family." He leaned back after saying it, satisfied. Grandma stared at him for a moment. "No," she said. "But paper has a wonderful way of remembering what people prefer to forget." Nobody spoke for 5 seconds. I know because I counted. Then my mother asked Natalie whether she had chosen curtains for her new condominium. That was our family. The wound happened. The room moved around it, and afterward, everyone pretended the furniture had always been arranged that way. Grandma's house stood at 18 Hawthorne Street, less than a mile from the courthouse where Grant would later challenge her will. It was a red brick Georgian built in 1948, with white shutters, a narrow sunroom, and a silver maple tree that had lifted one section of the front walkway. The house was not enormous. Grant called it a mansion whenever he discussed its value, and an old money pit whenever Grandma asked him to help with repairs. It had 4 bedrooms, though one had been converted into a sewing room before I was born. The kitchen had pale yellow cabinets, black and white floor tiles, and a deep porcelain sink with a crack shaped, like a river branch. The 3rd stair creaked. The 5th stair dipped slightly near the wall. The upstairs bathroom door would not close in July unless you lifted the handle as you pushed. I knew every flaw. To me, none of them felt like flaws. They felt like proof that the house had lived. Grandma cleaned the woodwork with lemon oil every second Saturday. In the winter, the radiators smelled faintly of dust and hot metal. In summer, the sunrooms smelled of tomato vines because she kept seedlings in chipped clay pots along the windows. I spent more time there than I did in my parents' house once I became an adult. At first, it was because Grandma needed help with small things. A pharmacy pickup, a ride to the optometrist, someone to replace a porch light she could no longer reach. Then the small things became more frequent. Her property tax notice arrived with the wrong parcel number. A roofing contractor charged her for materials he had not delivered. The electric company enrolled her in a rate plan she had never requested. Grandma could have called Grant. She did not. Grant made every favor feel like an acquisition. If he drove her to an appointment, he spent the ride asking what she planned to do with the house. If he paid a bill online, he complained that her accounts were disorganized. If he arranged a repair, the contractor always seemed to be connected to one of his business partners. I did not offer advice unless she asked. I brought a folder. That was the difference. The first folder was green and cost $4.39 at Miller's Office Supply. I divided it into 6 sections. Utilities, taxes, repairs, insurance, medical notices, everything else. Grandma watched me label the tabs at her kitchen table. "You make order look restful," she said. I smiled. It's mostly just colored paper. No, it's knowing where the truth is when somebody tries to move it. At the time, I thought she was talking about utility bills. Later, I understood that she had been talking about Grant. My grandmother was 78 when I began helping her regularly. She was 84 when she died. Those 6 years changed the shape of my life. Every Wednesday after work, I drove to Hawthorne Street and made dinner. Nothing impressive. Soup, baked potatoes, chicken with too much rosemary because Grandma always said there was no such thing. On Saturdays, we handled what she called house business. I checked statements. She signed checks. We called contractors. We compared estimates. She asked questions that were sharper than people expected. What does that fee cover? Why did the rate change? Where is that written? She had spent 42 years married to my grandfather, Thomas Bennett, who owned a small printing company. When he died, Grant began telling everyone that Grandma had never understood the finances. That was not true. Grandpa handled the company. Grandma handled everything that kept the company from swallowing the family. She knew which properties had liens. She knew which loans had been paid. She knew that Grant's first development project survived only because Grandpa covered an $86,000 shortfall. She knew that my father had signed away part of his inheritance to protect Grant from a lawsuit in 2003. She knew where the records were. More importantly, she knew what they meant. One rainy Saturday in March, we sat at the kitchen table going through a box of old papers from the hall closet. Grandma wore a blue cardigan with one loose button. I remember that because she kept twisting the button while she spoke. She handed me a property transfer from 1987. Tell me what you see. I read the first page. It was a deed transferring a narrow commercial lot from my grandfather's printing company into a partnership he had formed with Grant. The legal description is incomplete, I said. What else? The notary date is 2 days before Grandpa's signature. Grandma nodded. What does that mean? It could be an error, or the document was prepared in stages and notarized incorrectly. Or? I looked at her. Or someone wanted it to appear complete before it was. She smiled then, not happily. You always notice what people hope you'll skip. She folded the deed and returned it to the box. Your uncle notices what something can become. You notice what it already is. Both skills have value. Only one of you understands that. I did not ask which one. I knew. Grandma never praised me loudly in front of the family. She knew praise became a target in our house. Instead, she gave me responsibility. The spare key, the alarm code, the name of her insurance agent, the combination to the small fireproof safe in the sewing room closet. 6/22/41, my grandparents' wedding date. I repeated the numbers in my head 3 times when she told me, not because I expected to need them, because counting fixed things in place. If you understand why Mara kept every receipt, every estimate, and every strange little document, comment the word folder. Sometimes the object everyone mocks becomes the one thing that refuses to lie. Stay with me, because the first time Grant acted like Grandma's house already belonged to him, he did it in front of all of us. It happened on a Sunday in October. Grandma had invited the family for lunch. She made pot roast carrots and those small buttered onions that slid away from the fork. Grant arrived 40 minutes late in a charcoal jacket that still had the tailor's temporary stitching in one sleeve. Natalie came with him. My parents were already there. I had set the table. When Grant walked in, he kissed Grandma's cheek and handed her a bottle of wine she did not drink. Then he stood in the dining room doorway and looked around, not like a guest, like an appraiser. You still have the walnut set, he said. Grandma glanced at the table. I ate breakfast at it this morning. I mean, you haven't got? At it refinished. It does not need refinishing. It would photograph better. The room became quiet. Grandma placed the roast on the table. Why would it need to photograph better? Grant removed his jacket. For insurance, or eventual listing purposes. I'm just thinking ahead. Grandma sat down at the head of the table. I'm not listing my house. I know. Not now. Not later either. He smiled with the patience people use on children and older women. Mom, nobody is saying you need to do anything. I'm talking about keeping options open. My options are open. You know what I mean. I do. That ended the conversation for Grandma. It did not end it for Grant. Halfway through lunch, he began discussing property values in the Hawthorne district. He said 2 nearby lots had been rezoned. He said developers were paying premiums for corner access. He said the house had more value in its land than in its walls. Grandma cut one of the buttered onions in half. You have always been eager to remove walls. Grant chuckled as though she had complimented him. My father lowered his eyes. Mom passed the potatoes. After dessert, Grant asked Dad to walk outside and look at the rear boundary. Natalie took a phone call in the sunroom. Mom began helping Grandma clear dishes. I stayed at the table, stacking plates. That was when I noticed a yellow measuring tape hanging from Grant's coat pocket. I picked it up. It was not old or accidental. The metal clip was bright. The tape still had a hardware store sticker on one side. $22.99. I knew the price because I had bought the same model for the records office. Grant returned through the back door. He saw it in my hand. What are you measuring? I asked. His expression barely changed. Nothing. You brought a tape measure to lunch. I had it in the car. It was in your coat. He walked toward me and took it from my hand. Mara, not everything is an investigation. I asked a question, and I answered. Grandma stood near the kitchen sink holding a damp plate. What did you measure, Grant? He looked at her. The rear setback. Paul and I were talking about the old garage. Dad had followed him inside and froze near the door. We weren't talking about the garage, Dad said. The honesty escaped before he could stop it. Grant turned slowly. Dad touched the side of his neck. I mean, not exactly. Grant smiled. There's an opportunity to add value here, that's all. Grandma set the plate down. You measured my property without asking me. It was a rough estimate. You discussed it with someone? Grant did not answer immediately. 4 seconds. I counted each one. Then he said, I had a preliminary conversation with a builder. Mom stopped wiping the counter. Natalie had come back into the room. She watched her father with a small frown. Grandma dried her hands. You will call that builder tomorrow. Mom, you will tell him yet? You have no authority to discuss this property. I never said I had authority. You brought him measurements. I brought him possibilities. No, you brought him something that was not yours. Grant's face hardened. Not much, just around the mouth. I'm trying to protect the value of the family's largest asset. Grandma looked at him for a long moment. My house is not the family's asset. Eventually it will be. No. The word was quiet. Grant blinked. Grandma continued. My home will belong to the person I choose. He looked toward my father, then toward Natalie. Finally his eyes landed on me. Something moved behind them. A calculation. He smiled again. Of course. But the smile was different now. That afternoon, while everyone else gathered coats, Grandma asked me to remain behind. I stood in the front hall as my parents walked to their car. Dad glanced back once. Mom did not. Grant kissed Grandma's cheek before leaving. Don't let paperwork make you suspicious of your own son, he said. Grandma's hand rested lightly on the doorframe. Do not let being my son make you careless with my trust. He looked wounded. It was one of his best expressions. He had used it for years whenever consequences arrived. Then he left. Grandma locked the door. She checked it twice. I followed her into the kitchen. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. She washed a serving spoon that was already clean. I dried it and placed it in the drawer. Finally, she said, Your uncle believes waiting is the same as permission. He thinks the house will go to him. Yes. Will it? Grandma looked at me. Her eyes were gray, almost silver in the light from the window. No. I did not ask the next question. She answered it anyway. I have made other plans. Then she opened the narrow drawer beside the refrigerator. It held rubber bands, takeout menus, batteries, 2 birthday candles, and a blue envelope. The envelope was thick. Her name was written across the front in black ink. Evelyn M. Bennett. Below it, in smaller letters, were the words, Property Records, Sealed Copy. She placed one hand on it. This stays here for now. What is it? A reminder. For you? For the person who believes I won't remember what he does. She closed the drawer. That was all she told me. I drove home through a light rain, thinking about the envelope. At the time, I believed it contained a revised deed. I was partly right. What I did not know was that the blue envelope was only one piece of a much larger record Grandma had been building. Grant's measuring tape should have been enough to make the family cautious. Instead, everybody treated the incident like one of his harmless habits. Dad called me 2 days later. Your uncle is embarrassed, he said. I was sitting at my desk during lunch, eating yogurt from a paper cup. He should be. Mara. What? You know how he is. That sentence had excused more damage in our family than any apology ever repaired. You mean he discusses Grandma's property with builders without her permission? He was thinking ahead. That's what he said. He wants to protect the family. Grandma said the house is not a family asset. Dad exhaled. In the background, I heard the television. Your grandmother is getting older. She is still capable of deciding what belongs to her. I didn't say she wasn't. You didn't need to. A silence followed. I counted 6 clicks from the wall clock above my desk. Then Dad lowered his voice. Grant thinks she may be letting you influence her. I set down the yogurt. What does that mean? You're there a lot. She asks me to be. I know. I'm not accusing you. You're repeating an accusation. He is concerned. No, he is disappointed that helping Grandma has not given him control. Dad said my name as if I had stepped too close to the edge of something. Mara. He measured her land. He made a mistake. He made a plan. Dad went quiet. I could almost feel him reaching for the sentence that would end the conversation without requiring him to choose a side. He found it. I don't want this to divide the family. The family was already divided. Grant just noticed the house was on the other side. Dad ended the call soon after that. That evening, my mother sent me a message. Be gentle with your father. He is under pressure. I stared at the words. There was no question about who had created the pressure. There was only another request for me to absorb it. I did not answer. 3 weeks later, Grandma called me at 7:12 on a Thursday morning. Mara, did you take the silver tea service? I was standing in my kitchen pouring coffee. No. Did your mother? I don't think so. It's gone. The tea service had belonged to my great-grandmother. 4 pieces, a pot, a sugar bowl, a cream pitcher, and a tray engraved with the initials L.A. W. It was not worth a fortune. Maybe $1,200 if polished and sold as a set. To Grandma, its value had nothing to do with money. Her mother had used it at her wedding. I drove to Hawthorne Street before work. The glass cabinet in the dining room stood open. There was an empty rectangle on the second shelf where the tray had rested for as long as I could remember. Grandma sat at the table in her robe. Her hair had not been brushed. That frightened me more than the missing silver. She always brushed her hair before coming downstairs. Who has a key? I asked. You, Paul, Grant. Did anyone visit? Grant stopped by Tuesday. Why? He brought soup. Grant brought soup? It came from a restaurant. That made more sense. Did he go into the dining room? He took a telephone call. I was in the sunroom. I called him from Grandma's kitchen. He answered on the 3rd ring. Mara, did you take Grandma's tea service? It's no greeting. No soft let-in. I had learned that direct questions saved time with people who depended on confusion. Grant laughed once. What? The silver tea set is missing. You were here Tuesday. So you're accusing me of stealing from my mother? I'm asking whether you took it. Those are not the same thing? They are not. A pause. Then his voice changed, less offended, more practical. I had it appraised. Grandma closed her eyes. I watched her face. You removed it from her house? I borrowed it. Without telling her. I left a note. We searched later. There was no note. Grant continued. She is sitting on objects that need to be documented for insurance. She already has an inventory. An outdated one. Bring it back. It's with a specialist. Who? Someone I use. Name. He sighed. Do not speak to me like one of the clerks at your office. Then stop making me trace missing property. He became very quiet. When he spoke again, every word had been cooled before it reached me. Paper doesn't make you family, Mara. I looked at Grandma. Her eyes opened. She heard him through the phone. No, I said. But taking family property without permission still has a name. His breath sharpened. I'll return it when the appraisal is complete. You will return it today. Or what? I did not answer. Grandma did. She reached for the phone. I handed it to her. Grant, she said. His voice became warm immediately. Mom, I'm handling the insurance inventory. You will bring my mother's tea set back before 5 o'clock. It's being evaluated. Before 5. I'm trying to help. No, you are trying to practice owning my things. Silence. Grandma continued. If it is not here by 5, I will report it missing. Mom, that is absurd. 4:59 would be safer. She ended the call. The tea service returned at 4:37. Grant did not bring it himself. A young employee from his office carried the box to the front door. His name was Leo. He could not have been older than 23. I was told to deliver this, he said. Grandma asked whether he had appraised it. He shook his head. No, ma'am. Mr. Bennett had it in the conference room. For 2 days? Leo looked uncomfortable. I don't know. I asked who had packed the box. Mr. Bennett. Grandma signed nothing. She closed the door. We inspected each piece on the dining table. The tray had a new scratch near the engraved initials. Thin. About 2 inches long. Grandma ran her finger across it. Then she looked at me. Photograph everything. I did. Front, back, hallmarks, scratch, box, delivery label, 16 photographs. I printed copies at work and added them to the green folder. That was the first time Grandma asked me to write a dated account of something Grant had done. I wrote only facts. Tuesday, November 9th. Grant Bennett visited Avell in Bennett at approximately 1:30 p.m. Thursday, November 11th, 7:12 a.m. Evelyn reported the tea service missing, 8:03 a.m. Grant confirmed by telephone that he had removed it, 37 p.m. Property returned by employee Leo Martin. Grandma read the page. You didn't write that he stole it. He said he borrowed it. Do you believe him? That's not what the record is for. She smiled faintly. What is it for? To show what happened. She signed beneath my name. Then she placed the account in a new folder. Not green. Blue. The same shade as the envelope in the kitchen drawer. Over the next year, Grant's behavior became more polished. He stopped taking objects. He began taking positions. He told the family Grandma's memory was slipping. He said she repeated herself. He said she forgot appointments. He said she had become suspicious. Some of it sounded believable because age had changed her. She occasionally misplaced her reading glasses. Once she put the television remote in the pantry. She called Natalie by my mother's name twice, but Grandma could still balance her checkbook to the cent. She could recall the purchase price of the Hawthorne house. $17,800 in 1966. She could describe every term of the home equity loan Grant had persuaded Grandpa to sign in 1998. She could tell you which company repaired the west chimney in 2014 and why they had returned $400 after overbilling her. Memory was not a single light. Grandma understood that. Grant pretended it was. At Christmas, he tested her in front of the family. He asked what she had eaten for breakfast. He asked whether she remembered Natalie's middle name. He asked what year Grandpa died. The questions came disguised as conversation. Grandma answered the first two, then she looked at him. Your father died on February 17, 2016 at 6:40 in the evening. You arrived at the hospital at 7:25 because you had stopped to finish a meeting. The room went still. Grant's face lost color. Grandma folded her napkin. Would you like to test anything else? My mother whispered, Evelyn? As if Grandma had done something cruel. Grant looked around the table and smiled. I was only making conversation. No, Grandma said. You were building a witness list. I remember that sentence exactly. It was the first moment I understood she was not merely defending herself. She was watching him prepare. After dinner, I found her in the kitchen wrapping leftovers. Do you think he'll try to declare you incompetent? I asked. She spooned potatoes into a plastic container. I think your uncle believes labels become true if enough people repeat them. You should talk to a lawyer. I have. I stopped. Grandma pressed the lid onto the container. When? Several times. Who? Celia Ross. I knew the name. Celia had handled Grandpa's estate. She was in her 60s, with silver hair cut at her jaw and a way of listening that made careless people nervous. What did she say? She said preparation is cheaper than repair. That sounds like her. Grandma handed me the container. You will meet with her when the time is right. About what? My house. There it was. The thing none of us had said plainly. Grandma leaned one hip against the counter. I am leaving Hawthorne Street to you. For a moment, the only sound was the refrigerator motor. I looked toward the dining room. Grant was laughing at something Natalie had said. My father stood beside him, holding a glass of wine. Mom was collecting gift wrap. Grandma, you do not need to answer now. Why me? Her expression changed. Not offended, almost sad. Because you asked that question. I looked down at the container in my hands. The plastic lid had fogged above the potatoes. Grant will fight it. Yes. You know he will. Yes. Dad might support him. I know. Mom will say I'm tearing the family apart. Grandma reached out and straightened the collar of my sweater. That is why the house needs to go to someone who can survive being blamed for another person's greed. I swallowed. I don't want them to think I helped you decide. You did help me decide. My chest tightened. She continued before I could speak. You helped me decide by never asking for it. That sentence followed me for years. It still does. Grandma did not transfer the house immediately. She made her plans in stages. First came independent medical evaluations. Not one. 3. One from her regular physician, one from a geriatric specialist in Harrisburg, and one from a neurologist Celia recommended. Grandma complained about the drive to Harrisburg. It takes 90 minutes to prove I know my own address, she said. I drove. She completed memory tests, reasoning exercises, and questions about her finances. She returned home exhausted and irritated. The reports all reached the same conclusion. Mild age-related forgetfulness. No cognitive impairment affecting legal capacity. Grandma asked me to read every page. The neurologist charged $840. She circled the number on the invoice. Most expensive conversation I've had this year. Then came the house appraisal. Celia chose the appraiser, not Grant. The property was valued at $485,000, mostly because the lot was larger than neighboring parcels and the district had recently changed its development rules. Grant somehow learned the number within a week. He called Grandma. I was there when he did. She put the phone on speaker because her hands were covered in flour. 485 is optimistic, he said. Grandma shaped biscuit dough on the counter. You sound disappointed. I'm realistic. You were not asked for an opinion. Who ordered the appraisal? I did. Why? For my records. What records? My own. He paused. Did Mara arrange it? No. Was she present? I am present now, I said. Grant exhaled through his nose. Of course you are. Grandma dusted flour from her fingers. If you have a question, ask it. I want to know what is happening with the property. Nothing. Then why are lawyers and appraisers involved? Grandma looked at me, not surprised, interested. How do you know a lawyer is involved? Grant recovered quickly. Paul mentioned something. That was a lie. Dad did not know yet. Grandma knew it too. She looked toward the blue envelope drawer, then back at the phone. You have been speaking to someone you should not be speaking to. I talk to people, Mom. That is what business requires. My business does not require you. His tone sharpened. After everything I've done for this family? Grandma rested both hands on the counter. What exactly have you done that purchased my house? He did not answer. She waited. 5 seconds. 8. 11. Finally, he said, This is what happens when people fill your head with documents. Grandma ended the call. The biscuits burned because we forgot them in the oven. We ate them anyway. The bottoms were black and the centers were soft. Grandma spread apricot jam over hers. You see, she said, even ruined things can still have a useful middle. That evening, she removed the blue envelope from the drawer. She did not open it. She carried it upstairs. I followed her to the sewing room. The room had faded rose wallpaper and a dress form Grandpa bought her in 1972. The fireproof safe sat in the closet beneath a shelf of fabric. Grandma turned the dial. 6:22:41. The door opened. Inside were insurance policies, savings bonds, Grandpa's military papers, a velvet box containing her wedding ring, and 3 blue folders. She placed the envelope behind them. Then she closed the safe. You remembered the combination? She asked. Yes. Good. Grandma, what exactly are you preparing for? She sat on the sewing stool. The afternoon light showed every fine line around her eyes. For the difference between grief and opportunity, I waited. She folded her hands. When I die, your uncle will grieve me. I believe that, but his grief will not stop him from noticing what is available. I sat on the chair beside the window. He thinks the house is his. He thinks everything eventually becomes his, if he waits long enough. What are the blue folders? A record. Of him? Of everyone. That surprised me. Grandma saw it. I am not building a trap, Mara. I am making my decisions difficult to rewrite. Does Grant know? He knows enough to behave better. That hasn't worked. No. A small smile touched her mouth. That is why there is a second layer. She would not explain the second layer that day. Instead, she asked me to replace the closet light bulb. That was Grandma. She could tell you your life was about to change, then hand you a 40-watt bulb. The next major wound happened at her 83rd birthday dinner. We held it at Larkstone, a restaurant near the river with white tablecloths and tiny lamps on each table. Grandma wore a dark green dress and her pearl earrings. There were 10 of us. Grant had reserved a private room. He presented it as a gift, though Grandma later told me the restaurant manager owed him a favor. Halfway through dinner, Grant stood and tapped his water glass with a spoon. I have something special for Mom, he announced. A waiter rolled in a small projector. The lights dimmed. A slideshow began. Photographs from Grandma's childhood. Her wedding. Grant and Dad as boys. Family holidays. Grandpa standing outside the printing company. The pictures were beautiful. For 10 minutes I forgot to be cautious. Then the final slide appeared. It was an architectural rendering of Grandma's property. Not the house. What would replace it? 3 narrow luxury townhomes stood where Hawthorne Street had been. Across the top, in silver letters, were the words, "The Evelyn Residences." Everyone became silent. Grant stepped beside the screen. "This is only a concept," he said, "a tribute to Mom's legacy." Grandma stared at the image. The rendered maple tree was young and perfectly straight. Her real tree was gone. The sunroom was gone. The crooked third step. The yellow kitchen, everything. Gone. Natalie smiled uncertainly. My mother whispered, "Oh." Dad looked at his plate. Grant continued. The property is uniquely positioned for a thoughtful redevelopment. We could preserve the family name while creating long-term value for the next generation. Grandma turned toward him. You designed this? My team did. You gave them access to my property information? It is public, not the interior measurements. Grant's expression changed. Only for a second. I saw it. So did Grandma. He had more than public records. The rendering showed the exact house footprint, rear garage depth, and side yard clearance. He had either entered the property to measure it or used plans we had not given him. Grandma looked around the table. Who helped him? No one answered. She asked again. Who gave Grant the house plans? Dad's shoulders dropped. That was the answer. Grandma looked at him. Paul? Dad rubbed his thumb against the side of his glass. They were in Dad's old company records. You gave them to Grant? He said it was for insurance planning. Grant stepped away from the screen. Mom, please. This was meant to honor you. By demolishing my home while I'm sitting in it? It is a future concept. Whose future? The family's. My house is not your family project. We have been through this. No, you have ignored it. People in the main restaurant could not hear us through the closed doors. The private room suddenly felt less like a gift and more like a place Grant had chosen so he could control the witnesses. He turned toward me. You knew she would react this way. I stared at him. I didn't know about the presentation. But you have been feeding this fear. Grandma's chair moved back. The legs scraped the floor. I am not afraid. Grant faced her. Then why are you acting as if everyone is trying to rob you? Because my son just projected the destruction of my home onto a wall and called it a birthday present. Natalie lowered her head. Mom began crying quietly, not because anyone had hurt her, because conflict had become visible. Dad whispered, Grant, turn it off. Grant did not. The silver letters remained above him. The Evelyn residences. Grandma looked at the screen one final time. Then she picked up her purse. Mara, take me home. I stood. Grant moved between us and the door, not enough to block us, enough to make us acknowledge him. This is ridiculous. Grandma stopped. You named buildings after me before I was dead. It was a tribute. You removed my house from the picture. His jaw tightened. Paper doesn't make you family, Mom. A building does not either. I am trying to create something lasting. There it was again, the sentence. Paper doesn't make you family. This time he aimed it at her. Grandma did not blink. No, Grant, she said. But consent tells me whether family can be trusted. She walked past him. I followed. Outside, the air smelled like rain and river mud. Grandma stood beneath the restaurant awning while I brought the car around. When she got in, she fastened her seatbelt with steady hands. We drove 3 blocks before she spoke. Did you see your father? Yes. He gave Grant the plans. Yes. He will say he did not understand. Yes. Grandma watched the streetlights pass across the window. Understanding is not always missing, Mara. Sometimes courage is. We reached Hawthorne Street at 9:18. I helped her inside. She removed her pearls in the kitchen and placed them in a saucer. Then she opened the drawer beside the refrigerator. It was empty. The blue envelope was still upstairs in the safe. But Grandma stood there looking into the empty drawer as if she could see the shape it had left behind. I hoped he might stop, she said. I did not ask who. Do you still hope that? No. She closed the drawer. Call Celia tomorrow. I did. Celia's office was on the 2nd floor of a stone building across from the courthouse. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old carpet. A brass clock on the wall ran 2 minutes slow. Grandma met with her alone first. I sat outside for 47 minutes. I counted every person who crossed the hallway. 6. A courier, 2 attorneys, a woman carrying a box of files, a man in work boots, a clerk balancing 3 cups of coffee. When the door opened, Celia asked me to come in. Her office had tall shelves, a wide oak desk, and no family photographs. Grandma sat near the window. A blue folder rested in front of her. Celia motioned toward the empty chair. Your grandmother has authorized me to explain part of her estate plan. Part. I noticed the word. Celia opened the folder. The Hawthorne Street property will pass to you through a recorded transfer supported by her will and trust documents. I looked at Grandma. She nodded. Celia continued. The structure is intentionally redundant. Because Grant will challenge it, I said. Because someone may challenge it. She did not use his name. Lawyers often understood the value of leaving a sentence clean. What does redundant mean here? It means the same decision is documented through several independent instruments: a deed, a will, a trust amendment, capacity certifications, witness declarations, recorded statements. How many? Enough. Grandma smiled slightly. I looked at the blue folder. Does he know? Celia folded her hands. Grant knows your grandmother has updated her estate plan. He does not know the full terms. What terms? Grandma answered. There is one rule attached to the house. I waited. She spoke calmly. No family member may contest the transfer, pressure you to sell, place a claim against the property, or attempt to divide it for personal gain. That is more than one rule. It is one rule, she said. They must leave what I give you alone. Celia slid a page across the desk. The language was formal, but the meaning was clear. Anyone who violated the condition would lose any inheritance or trust benefit Grandma had provided to them. I read it twice, then a third time. Grant will say this is designed to punish him. It is designed to protect your grandmother's decision, Celia said. Is it enforceable? That depends on the conduct, the documents, and the court. No legal instrument is magic, but your grandmother has taken careful steps. Grandma looked at me. This is not revenge. I said nothing. It is a record, she continued. Truth should not need a hammer. It needs a place to stand. I touched the edge of the page. What if I don't want the house? Then you may decide what to do with it after it is yours, she said. The rule is not meant to imprison you. It is meant to stop someone else from taking the decision away. My throat tightened. The house had never felt like an asset to me. It was Grandma's kitchen light at 6 in the morning. Grandpa's coat hook near the basement stairs. The pencil marks inside the pantry door showing how tall Dad and Grant had been as children. It was a place built from ordinary days. And suddenly I could see how quickly those days might be converted into square footage. Why not sell it now? I asked. Then Grant cannot fight over the property. Grandma's eyes sharpened. Because fear shall not make my decisions for me. Celia watched me. I understood then that the house was only part of what Grandma was leaving. The larger inheritance was the right to refuse. The right to say no without explaining it until someone agreed. The right to let another person's anger remain theirs. I signed nothing that day. I was not required to. Grandma signed several documents. Celia notarized 2. An assistant entered and witnessed another. The blue folder became thicker. Before we left, Celia gave me a sealed card with her private telephone number. Keep this somewhere safe, she said. For when? When the family begins behaving as if grief has changed ownership. Her words felt cold at the time. Later, they would feel exact. On the walk back to the car, Grandma moved slowly. Her knees had been bothering her for weeks. I offered my arm. She took it. We crossed the street in 17 steps. At the car, she paused. Mara. Yes? When this becomes difficult, do not confuse guilt with responsibility. I'll try. No. She squeezed my arm. Do not try. Learn the difference now. I looked back at Celia's office window. What is the difference? Responsibility belongs to the person who makes the choice. Guilt is what they hand you when they dislike the result. That sentence would return to me in the courtroom. So would the blue envelope. So would Grant's voice saying, paper did not make us family. At that point, none of us understood how completely he intended to prove Grandma right. 3 days after the meeting with Celia, Grant sent Grandma a fruit basket. It arrived in a white cardboard box tied with a green ribbon. Pears, apples, 2 oranges, and a small jar of honey arranged beneath a sheet of clear plastic. The card said, "Thinking of you. Family is what matters." Grandma read it once. Then she handed it to me. "Put that with the others." I opened the blue folder. The card went behind the account of the missing tea service and the photographs of the scratched tray. I felt foolish preserving a fruit basket note as if it were evidence. Grandma did not. "People tell you what they want remembered," she said. "Records show you what happened around the words." We ate the pears. They were hard and almost tasteless. For several months, Grant behaved like the son he wanted other people to see. He called every Sunday. He sent an employee to clear snow from the walkway. He paid for the gutters to be cleaned without asking for the deed, the lot size, or a copy of Grandma's insurance policy. At Thanksgiving, he brought flowers instead of questions. My mother whispered that perhaps the birthday dinner had finally made him understand. Grandma did not answer. She placed the flowers in water, thanked him, and watched. So did I. The change lasted until February. Then Grant invited Grandma to lunch at a hotel near the interstate. He said he wanted to apologize privately. She asked me to do. Leave her but wait outside. I parked near the hotel entrance at 11:52 and watched her walk through the revolving door in her gray wool coat. The restaurant windows were tinted. I could not see her table. At 12:34 my phone rang. Grandma's name appeared on the screen. I answered immediately. "Mara, come inside." Her voice was steady. That frightened me. I found her in a corner booth across from Grant and a man I had never seen before. The stranger wore a navy suit and had a leather portfolio open beside his plate. There were no menus on the table, only papers. Grant smiled when he saw me. I thought this was private. "So did I," Grandma said. The man stood. "Derek Walsh." He offered his hand. I did not take it. "What is this?" Grant leaned back. "Derek works with Northline Residential." I knew the name. Northline had built 2 apartment complexes outside Bellwether and was trying to buy several properties near Hawthorne Street. The blueprints from Grandma's birthday returned to me. The missing tree, the vanished sunroom, the young, straight sidewalk. Grandma pushed a document toward me. It was a letter of intent. Not a contract, but close enough to make my stomach tighten. Northline proposed buying 18 Hawthorne Street for $420,000. $65,000 below the independent appraisal. The document described Grant as the family's authorized representative. I read that phrase twice. "Who authorized you?" I asked. Grant did not look at me. He looked at Grandma. "This is an opening offer. We negotiate upward." Grandma's hands rested beside her water glass. "You told this man you represented me." "I told him I was helping the family explore options. That is not what the paper says." Derek glanced at Grant. The first crack, small but visible. Grant tapped one finger against the table. "It can be amended." Grandma turned to Derek. "Did my son tell you I agreed to sell my home?" Derek chose his answer carefully. He indicated the family had reached a general understanding. "No family discussion took place." Grant's jaw tightened. "Mom, we are discussing it now." "No. You arranged a transaction and invited me to approve it after the fact. You haven't even heard the benefits." "I heard the price." "That is preliminary. You offered my house for less than its appraised value." Derek looked at Grant again. Second crack. "How do you know the appraisal?" Grant asked. Grandma almost smiled. "You were not supposed to know there was one." He froze, only for a second. But I saw it. He had revealed more than he intended. He tried to recover. "Paul mentioned it." "Paul did not know the amount." Silence. Derek closed his portfolio. "I think it would be best if we rescheduled after the ownership questions are clarified." "There are no ownership questions," Grandma said. "I own the house." "Of course." "And I am not selling it." Derek stood. "I understand. Grant stood too. Sit down. He did not shout. He rarely shouted. He used low words and hard eyes, which were more effective because the rest of us had spent years mistaking volume for danger. Derek did not sit. I was told the decision had effectively been made, he said. It has been, Grandma replied. Just not the decision you were promised. Derek gathered the letter of intent and slid it into his portfolio. I placed my hand on it. One moment, he looked at me. I want a copy. Grant stepped forward. No. The document identifies you as an authorized representative of property you do not own. It was a draft. I still want a copy. Derek glanced from Grant to Grandma. Grandma nodded. Derek removed one page, carried it to the hotel reception desk, and returned with a photocopy. Grant stood beside the table with both hands in his pockets. He looked calm. His left thumb moved against the fabric of his trousers. Back and forth. Back and forth. The same way Dad rubbed his neck when he lied. Derek gave the copy to Grandma. I apologize for the misunderstanding. It was not your misunderstanding, she said. He left. Grant remained standing. The restaurant had become louder around us. Plates struck tables. Someone laughed near the bar. A blender ran behind the counter. Ordinary sounds. They made the moment feel stranger. Grant looked at Grandma. You embarrassed me. She folded the letter in half. You introduced yourself as the owner of my decision. I was trying to secure a good outcome. For whom? For everyone. You offered my home below value. Because the property needs work. You told me the land was worth more than the walls. It is. Then why was your offer low? He looked toward me. Because he did not have an answer he could give his mother. He chose a different attack. This is what happens when Mara gets involved. Every conversation turns into an interrogation. I asked one question, I said. Who authorized you? You are poisoning her against her own family. Grandma rose from the booth. I knew you before Mara was born. He flinched. She placed the letter inside her purse. You do not get to blame her for what I see. Grant reached for the back of his chair. Mom, think about what you are doing. I am. If you keep treating me like an enemy, eventually I will stop trying to help. Grandma buttoned her coat. That sounds peaceful. We left him at the table. In the car, Grandma gave me the copied letter. Blue folder, she said. I placed it in my bag. Do you want to call Celia? I already did. When? This morning. You knew what lunch was about? I suspected. Why did you go? She looked through the windshield at the hotel entrance. Because I wanted to know how far he had gone. The answer came without emotion. That was when I understood she was no longer waiting for Grant to stop. She was measuring the distance. The letter from Northline became the 9th item in the blue folder. I numbered it. Grandma asked me to create a separate index, date, person involved. Description, supporting material. She reviewed every line, nothing dramatic, no accusations, no emotional words, only events. The week after the hotel lunch, Celia arranged another medical evaluation. Grandma passed. In April, she recorded a statement in Celia's office explaining her estate plan in her own words. I was not allowed in the room. That mattered. Celia wanted no one to claim I had prompted her. The recording lasted 53 minutes. Grandma answered questions about the house, her finances, the family, and her reasons. Celia later told me she had asked Grandma why the property was going to me instead of either of her sons. Grandma's answer was not shown to me then. I would hear it months after her funeral. Around that time, her health began changing in ways no document could slow. She tired earlier. Her knees hurt every day instead of only when it rained. She lost weight. The green dress she had worn on her birthday hung loosely from her shoulders. Tests found heart failure. The doctor explained it gently, as though a soft voice changed the words. Medication could help. Diet could help. Rest could help. But the condition would continue. Grandma listened without interrupting. When the doctor finished, she asked 3 questions. What will I be able to do? What will become harder? What decisions should I make now? The doctor looked surprised by the last one. I was not. Grandma had never feared decisions. She feared leaving them for dishonest people. We began spending more time together. I reduced my hours at work for 6 weeks, then used vacation days on appointment mornings. My father visited twice a month. Mom brought casseroles and cleaned whatever was already clean. Natalie called often and visited when she could. Grant sent assistants. One brought groceries. Another delivered documents for Grandma to sign. She signed none of them. The documents were described as routine financial authorizations. They would have given Grant permission to speak with her bank, insurance company, and utility providers. Grandma called Celia. Celia sent him a letter instructing him not to present any further papers without her review. Grant called Dad that night. Dad called me. It was always the same route. Grant created the pressure. Dad carried it. Mom asked me to absorb it. Your grandmother is making him feel like a criminal, Dad said. I was replacing a loose handle on Grandma's kitchen cabinet. She asked him to stop bringing documents. He was trying to help manage things. She has a lawyer. Celia is expensive. So is losing control of your accounts. Dad sighed. You always assume the worst of Grant. No. I keep adjusting to what he does. He says those forms were standard. Did you read them? No? Then you don't know. I trust my brother. That is your decision. He is your uncle. That is not an answer. Dad's voice became tired. Mara, what do you want me to say? I tightened the screw. That you looked at the facts before calling me. I don't want to choose sides. You already did. The cabinet handle stopped moving, solid. Dad remained silent. Then he said something honest. He makes it difficult not to. It was the closest he had ever come to admitting how Grant controlled him. I sat down at the kitchen table. Then stop making me pay for the choice you're afraid to change. He did not respond. Grandma entered the kitchen wearing her robe and slippers. She saw my face. Your father? I nodded. She held out her hand for the phone. I gave it to her. Paul, she said, come see me tomorrow. I could not hear his answer. No. Alone. Another answer. 10 o'clock. She ended the call. Dad arrived the next morning at 9:56. I left before he entered the house. Grandma told me later that they spoke for almost 2 hours. She did not repeat everything, only one part. I asked him whether he believed I was competent, she said. What did he say? He said yes. And then? I asked why he kept supporting a man who said I was not. I waited. Grandma looked toward the window. He cried. Dad did not cry often. I had seen it at Grandpa's funeral, and once when our childhood dog died. What did he say? He said Grant had always known how to make him feel small. I felt an old anger rise. And that made it acceptable to let Grant do it to everyone else? Grandma's expression sharpened. No. The answer stopped me. She continued. Understanding weakness is not the same as excusing it. Did he promise to stop helping Grant? He promised to think. That means no. It means your father is still hoping courage can be delayed without consequence. She reached for her tea. He will learn otherwise. Dad visited more often after that. Sometimes he came without Mom. He fixed the loose railing on the back steps and changed the filter in the furnace. He sat with Grandma in the sunroom. He did not mention the estate plan. Grant noticed the change. He called Dad constantly. I could tell because Dad began leaving his phone in the car. For a short time, I wondered whether Grandma's illness might force the family into honesty. It did not. Illness does not improve people. It reveals their priorities. Grant's priority was speed. By July, he had contacted a second developer. By August, he had spoken with an auction company about the furniture. By September, he had arranged for a photographer to take exterior pictures of the house. Grandma saw the photographer from the sunroom window. He stood near the mailbox with a wide-angle lens. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. She called my name once. I went outside. The man lowered his camera. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I'm doing preliminary location work." "For whom?" He looked at a message on his phone. "Bennett Property Holdings. This is private property." "I'm on the sidewalk." "You photographed through the front windows." He glanced toward the house. "I was told the home would be available soon." "By Grant Bennett?" "Yes." I wrote down his name and company. He apologized and left. Grandma watched from behind the curtain. That afternoon, she asked Celia to send Grant a formal notice. It stated that he had no authority to advertise, photograph, appraise, market, inspect, or negotiate over the house. The letter also reminded him that interference with the property could affect his rights under the estate plan. Grant received it by certified mail. He signed for it himself. That signature would matter later. His response came 4 days afterward, not to Grandma, to the family. He sent a long email accusing Celia and me of isolating an elderly woman. He said reasonable questions were being treated as attacks. He said Grandma's assets had become mysteriously secret. He said the family deserved transparency. My mother forwarded the message to me with 3 words: "Please fix this." I read the email twice. Then I called her. "What do you want me to fix?" "The fighting." I did not send the email. "You could reassure him." "About what?" "That you aren't trying to take everything. Grandma decides what happens to her property." "I know, but Grant feels shut out. He is shut out of decisions that are not his." "Mara, please." Her voice broke. For years that sound had worked on me. I would soften, explain, accept a little blame so she could feel peace returning. This time, I looked at the framed photograph beside Grandma's telephone. Grandma and Grandpa on their 25th anniversary. Her hands were folded over his. Both of them looked directly into the camera. "No," I said. Mom became quiet. "I am not fixing the consequences of what Grant keeps doing. You're becoming very hard. I'm becoming clear. That is not how family speaks to each other. How should family speak? With compassion." "Did you ask Grant to show compassion when he marketed Grandma's house while she was living in it?" "He is afraid." "So is she." That stopped her. For 3 seconds. Then she whispered, "He could lose everything." I knew then that Grant had told her more than he had told me. "What could he lose?" She inhaled quickly. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. He said there are conditions in the estate." I closed my eyes. "Who told him?" "I assumed he knew." "Mom, your father may have mentioned something." There it was, again. Dad had given Grant the house plans. Now he had given him information about the estate conditions. Not the details, perhaps. Enough. Did Dad see the documents? No. Evelyn told him there would be consequences if anyone interfered. And Dad told Grant. He was trying to warn him. Did it work? Mom began crying. I let her. Not cruelly, quietly. There are times when rescuing someone from discomfort only teaches them that tears can erase the question. When she stopped, I said, "Tell Dad not to discuss Grandma's estate with Grant again." "You tell him." "No. You asked me to fix this. That is the only part I will help fix." I ended the call. Grandma had heard most of it from the sunroom. She did not praise me. She only said, "Better." That was enough. If you have ever been handed the burden of keeping peace while someone else kept creating the damage, comment the word deed. Peace without truth is only silence arranged for the comfort of the loudest person. Stay close, because the day my grandmother finally explained the full rule, she also told me exactly what Grant would do next. It happened on October 3rd, a cold morning. Grandma had spent the previous night in the hospital after struggling to breathe. The medication helped, and the doctors allowed her to return home. I slept in the sewing room. At 6:20, I heard her moving in the kitchen. She was wearing a cream robe and making coffee she was not supposed to drink. I took the jar from her. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." "You need to rest." "I have rested for 7 hours." "You were awake at least twice." "You were counting?" 14 minutes the first time. 9 the second. She smiled. "You always were a strange child." I made tea instead. We sat at the kitchen table while the sky turned from black to gray. Grandma looked smaller than she had the week before. The sight frightened me. She noticed. "Do not spend the time we have left staring at the end of it." I lowered my eyes. "I'm trying not to." "You are bad at pretending." "So are you." "Good." She drank a little tea. Then she asked me to bring the blue envelope from the safe. I went upstairs. 6:22:41. The dial turned smoothly. The envelope lay behind the folders. It was heavier than I remembered. When I returned, Grandma placed it between us. "This is not the original," she said. "The originals are with Celia and recorded where necessary." "What is inside?" "Copies of the property transfer, the will provision, the trust condition, and acknowledgments signed by the people who may inherit." "Acknowledgments?" "Your father and Grant both signed statements confirming they understood the rule." I stared at her. "When?" 6 weeks ago." "Grant signed it?" "Yes." "Why would he?" "Because he believed refusing might expose his intentions." She said it without satisfaction, only recognition. "What exactly did it say?" "That anyone who challenges the transfer of the house, pressures you to sell, files a claim, assists another person in contesting it, or attempts to profit from interference with the property forfeits the benefits left to them." "How much did you leave Grant?" Her eyes remained on mine. "Enough that walking away would have been easier." "That is not a number." $275,000 through the family trust, paid in stages. I sat back. "And Dad?" "The same." "Did they know the amount?" "Yes." "Then why would Grant risk it?" "He believes rules are written for people who cannot outmaneuver them." I touched the envelope. "Does Dad understand he could lose his share by helping Grant?" "He understands now." "Will he?" Grandma looked toward the window. "I do not know." The honesty hurt more than reassurance would have. "What do you think Grant will do?" "He will wait until I am gone." She spoke without hesitation. "He will arrive quickly. He will act helpfully. He will create urgency. He will tell you the house is expensive, unsafe, or unfair. He will offer to manage the process. When you refuse, he will make your refusal the injury." The kettle clicked as it cooled. I listened. "He will say you influenced me. He will say I was confused. He will ask your parents to support him. He may produce papers. He may have witnesses." "How can you know that?" "Because he has already rehearsed every part except my death." The words settled between us. I wanted to reject them, to say even Grant would not move that quickly. But the photographer had already come. The developer had already been promised a family agreement. The furniture had already been appraised without permission. The rehearsal was visible. Grandma slid the envelope closer to me. "You will not open this unless Celia tells you." "Why keep it here?" "Because Grant knows the house. He thinks anything important will be in the safe." My stomach tightened. "You expect him to search it?" "I expect him to look." "Then why leave it there?" "Because what he finds is not what he needs." She saw my confusion. "The copies in this envelope contain a marking. If they appear in court or in any transaction, Celia will know where they came from." "A trap." "Not exactly. A record. Always a record." "Does Celia know you're doing this?" "It was her idea." I laughed once, despite myself. Grandma smiled. "She is more interesting than she looks." We sat there until the room brightened. Then she asked me to put the envelope back in the safe. I turned the dial. 6, 22, 41. The numbers felt heavier. Grandma's final months came in small losses. First, she stopped driving. Then she stopped using the stairs unless someone was with her. Then she moved from the upstairs bedroom into the front sitting room, where we placed a narrow hospital bed near the window. She hated the bed. "It looks like surrender," she said. We covered it with her yellow quilt. "That looks worse," she said. But she kept it. Natalie began visiting every Friday. She brought soup, magazines, and stories from work. For the first time, she asked me what I actually did at the records office. I explained title chains and parcel disputes. She listened. "I thought you filed papers." "So does your father." She looked embarrassed. "He says things." "Yes. I don't agree with everything." "Do you disagree where he can hear you?" She picked at the edge of a magazine. "Not usually." I nodded. "At least that's honest." Natalie visited the following Friday, too. That mattered. Quiet changes often do. Grant came twice. Both visits were brief. He brought no papers. He stood near Grandma's bed and spoke about childhood memories. Some were real. Some had been polished through years of retelling. Grandma listened. On his second visit, he cried. I saw him through the half-open door. He held her hand and said, "I never wanted things to become like this." Grandma studied his face. "Then stop becoming the person who makes them this way." He released her hand. The tears remained in his eyes. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I am your son." "Yes." "Does that mean nothing?" "It means you were loved before you learned to calculate what love might leave you." He stood. His face hardened. I stepped into the room. Grant looked at me. "This is private." Grandma answered. "Mara stays." He looked back at her. "So that is it?" "What is?" "She wins." Grandma's expression became tired. "No one was competing until you needed there to be a prize." He left without saying goodbye. I watched from the window as he sat in his car for nearly 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to believe he was grieving. Another part wondered whom he was calling. Both were probably true. Grandma died on December 14th at 4:16 in the morning. Snow had begun falling sometime after midnight. I was asleep in the armchair beside her bed. A change in the room woke me. Not a sound. The absence of one. I called the hospice nurse. Then I called Dad. He answered after 2 rings. When I told him, he made a sound I had never heard before. Low and broken. Mom took the phone. She said they were coming. Natalie arrived first. Her hair was wet from snow. She knelt beside Grandma's bed and pressed both hands to the yellow quilt. Grant came 28 minutes later. He entered with his own key. I had forgotten he still had one. He stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he was only a son who had lost his mother. His face folded. He sat on the edge of the chair and covered his eyes. No calculation. No performance that I could see. I stepped away and gave him space. Grief deserved that much, even from him. The funeral home arrived shortly after 7. By 9, the bed was empty. The yellow quilt remained folded at the foot. My mother walked through the rooms, touching things. Dad stood in the kitchen, staring at the floor tiles. Natalie made coffee. No one drank. Nicky Grant began making calls. At first, they seemed necessary. The church, the cemetery office, a florist. Then I heard him mention an estate clean-out company. I was in the front hall. "Why are you calling them?" He covered the phone. "To get an estimate." "For what?" "The house will need to be cleared eventually." "Not today." "Mara, I am handling practical matters." "No one asked you to." "My mother died 5 hours ago." "I know." "Then stop turning everything into a territorial fight." He returned to the call. I took the phone from his hand. The man on the other end said, "Hello? This property does not require a clean-out," I said. "Please remove the address from your schedule." I ended the call. Grant stared at me. Dad entered the hall. What happened? She grabbed my phone. He called a clean-out company, I said. Dad's face changed. Grant, what? We need estimates. No, Dad said. The word surprised all three of us. Grant looked at him. Dad's shoulders tightened, but he continued. Not today. Grant's eyes narrowed. Fine. Not warm. Just fine. That was the word they used for everything that used to be love. He took his phone and walked outside. At 9:42, I noticed the safe door upstairs was open. I had locked it 2 nights earlier. The sewing room closet light was on. The blue envelope was gone. I stood there without moving. 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. Then I called Celia. She answered immediately. Do not confront anyone, she said. The envelope is missing. When did you last see it? 2 nights ago. Who has been in the house? I listed the names. Has Grant been upstairs? I don't know. Say nothing. Photograph the safe. Do not touch the dial. I did exactly that. Door, shelves, empty space, closet handle, floor. Then I went downstairs. Grant was still outside near his car. He had one hand inside his coat pocket. The shape was rectangular, thick. Blue paper would not have shown through the fabric. I could not prove what he carried. Not then. Celia arrived at 10:18 with an investigator from her office. She greeted the family, expressed condolences, and asked to speak with me privately. Grant objected. This is a family home. Celia removed her gloves. It is Evelyn Bennett's estate property, and I am counsel for the estate. She has been dead 6 hours, which does not suspend the law. His face tightened. Celia looked at him. I suggest everyone refrain from removing documents or personal property until an inventory is completed. The sentence landed without accusation. Grant's hand moved away from his coat pocket. He left 20 minutes later. The blue envelope did not return. The funeral took place 4 days afterward. The church smelled of lilies and wet wool. Grandma had chosen 3 hymns, none of which Grant liked. He changed one without telling us. The organist mentioned it to me before the service. I changed it back. A small thing. But by then I understood that people like Grant depended on small changes going unchallenged. Move a song, move a chair, move a boundary, move a house. At the cemetery, snow gathered on the shoulders of everyone's coats. Dad stood beside me. Grant stood on his other side. For 1 minute, we looked like a family. Then the service ended. Grant leaned toward me and whispered, "We need to discuss the house before expenses begin accumulating." Grandma's coffin was still above the grave. I turned my head slowly. He did not look ashamed, only practical. I said nothing. He mistook that for uncertainty. I can take the burden off you. The cruel line returned to me. Paper doesn't make you family. Neither, apparently, did timing. I walked away. The will reading was held 6 days later in Celia's office. The phrase will reading made it sound ceremonial. It was not. There were no dramatic envelopes or long pauses arranged for effect. There was coffee in paper cups, a conference table, and 12 chairs. Present were Dad, Mom, Grant, Natalie, 2 distant cousins who had received small bequests, the executor appointed by Grandma, Celia, and me. Grant arrived with his own attorney. His name was Marcus Hale. He was younger than Celia and carried a briefcase that cost more than my monthly rent. Celia noticed him. Nothing in her face changed. Grant sat directly across from me. Before the meeting began, he leaned forward. Whatever happens today, we should remember we are family. I looked at him. The blue envelope was missing from Grandma's safe. The clean-out company had been called before her body left the house. He had discussed selling the property at the cemetery. Do you remember that? I asked. His smile faded. Celia began. Grandma's smaller gifts came first. Jewelry to Natalie. Grandpa's watch to Dad, a set of china to my mother. $10,000 to each distant cousin, a donation to the public library. Then came the trust benefits. $275,000 for Dad, paid over 5 years. The same amount for Grant. Grant relaxed slightly. His lawyer wrote something on a yellow pad. Then Celia read the property provision. The house at 18 Hawthorne Street, its land, fixtures, and contents not otherwise gifted, passed to me. My mother inhaled. Dad closed his eyes. Natalie looked at me, then at her father. Grant did not move. Celia continued reading. She explained the condition. No beneficiary could challenge the transfer, pressure me to sell, assert an ownership interest, interfere with possession, assist another challenge, or attempt to profit through an unauthorized transaction involving the property. Violation could result in forfeiture of the violator's remaining benefits. Grant's lawyer stopped writing. Grant smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. That is clearly directed at me. Sally, placed the document on the table. It applies to all beneficiaries. Because Mara convinced her I was trying to steal the house. No conclusion has been requested from you today. You expect me to sit here while my mother accuses me from the grave? Dad looked at him. Grant. No. This is obscene. His attorney touched his sleeve. Grant pulled away. I spent years protecting that property. I heard Grandma's voice. What exactly have you done that purchased my house? Celia opened another folder. You signed an acknowledgement of this provision on October 21st? Marcus turned sharply toward Grant. You signed? Grant looked at him. It was presented as a routine notice. Celia slid the signed page across the table. You were represented by counsel at the time. Marcus read it. Not his signature. Another attorney's? Grant had changed lawyers. I wondered why. Celia continued. The acknowledgement confirms that Mr. Bennett understood the condition and accepted his trust benefit subject to it. Grant looked at Dad. Did you sign this? Dad's voice was barely audible. Yes. And you said nothing? I warned you. You told me there might be conditions. You did not tell me Mara was taking the house. I didn't know until later. Liar. Dad flinched. Mom whispered, Please. Grant turned toward me. You planned this. No. You were in that house every week. You controlled her appointments, her papers, her medication. I did not control anything. You isolated her. Natalie spoke. That isn't true. The room shifted. Grant looked at his daughter. She swallowed but continued. Grandma asked Mara to be there. You don't know what happened. I visited, occasionally, more than you did. He stared at her. Natalie lowered her eyes, but she did not take back the words. Celia spoke before he could answer. This meeting is to explain the estate, not debate it. Marcus leaned toward Grant and whispered. Grant listened. Then he sat back. Fine. Not warm, just fine. The meeting continued. Celia explained that the deed transferring the property into a trust for my benefit had been recorded before Grandma's death. The will confirmed the decision, but was not the only legal support. Grant's face changed. When was the deed recorded? November 2nd. She was sick. She was medically evaluated. By whom? 3 independent physicians over the course of the planning process. His attorney whispered again. Grant ignored him. I want copies of everything. Appropriate documents will be provided through the estate process. I want them today. No. That single word from Celia carried more authority than any speech Grant had made. He looked at me. What are you going to do with it? The house? Yes. I have not decided. That means sell. No. You cannot afford the taxes and upkeep. I know the costs. Of course you do. You had access to every account. His attorney said his name quietly. Grant pushed back his chair. $485,000 handed to a filing clerk because she delivered groceries. No one spoke. The insult sat in the room. Then Dad said, "She did more than that." Grant turned on him. "You don't know what she did." "I know what you didn't." It was Dad's first real act of courage. It arrived late, but it arrived. Grant's face became empty. He picked up his coat. His attorney gathered the papers. At the door, Grant looked at me. "You are going to learn how expensive principal is." I answered calmly. "So are you." He left. Marcus followed. The door closed. My mother began crying. Not because Grandma was dead, not only because of that, because the family arrangement had finally failed in a room where she could not change the subject. Celia waited until she was quiet. Then she looked at me. "Do not enter any agreement, accept any offer, sign any maintenance contract, or allow anyone unsupervised access to the property." "Do you think he'll challenge?" "Yes." No hesitation. Dad rubbed both hands across his face. "He'll calm down." Celia looked at him. "No, Mr. Bennett, he will prepare." She was right. The first offer arrived the next morning. Grant proposed buying the house from me for $320,000. Cash, he said. Quick closing. No commissions, no public conflict. The letter described the price as generous given the property's condition. I placed it in a new binder. Not Grandma's blue folder. Mine. The binder was black, 3 inches thick, and cost $11.99. On the front, I placed a label. Hawthorne Street. Post-estate contact. Grant believed paper did not make family. He was about to learn what paper did make. It made timelines. It made patterns. It made lies stand beside the facts they were designed to hide. I declined the offer through Celia. The second offer came through my father. Grant raised the price to $375,000. Dad sat across from me in Grandma's kitchen. The room still smelled faintly of the lilies from the funeral. "He says this can end quietly," Dad said. "End what? The conflict?" "There is no conflict if he leaves the house alone. He thinks the will is unfair. The house was Grandma's." "I know. Then what is unfair?" Dad looked toward the pantry. The height marks from his childhood were still inside the door. He expected it. That is not ownership. He helped Dad with the printing business. He received part of that business. He says the property was always meant to stay with the family. It is staying with family. Dad closed his eyes. "You know what he means." "Yes, he means himself." I slid Grant's written offer across the table. "Did you read the price?" Dad looked. His eyebrows rose. "That is low." $55,000 below the offer he arranged while Grandma was alive. $110,000 below the appraisal. He said repairs. The roof is 6 years old. The furnace is 4. The electrical panel was replaced last spring. "What repairs?" Dad had no answer. "Did he show you his plan?" "What plan?" "The developer agreement." He looked confused. I watched him carefully. Grant promised the property to Northline before Grandma died. He discussed options. He represented himself as authorized. Dad rubbed his neck. "I didn't know that." "He gave them plans you provided." His hand stopped. "I thought those were for insurance." "I know." The shame in his face was real. That did not erase what happened. It only made the truth harder for him to avoid. "Dad, stop carrying messages for him. He is my brother, and I am your daughter." The words landed. He looked at me. For once, I did not soften them. He left without asking again. The third offer came from a company I did not recognize. Hawthorne Renewal, LLC. $410,000. The registered address traced back to a post office box used by Bennett Property Holdings. Grant had created a separate company to disguise the buyer. It took me 23 minutes to find the connection through public filings. I printed the registration, added it to the binder, numbered the tab, then came the relatives. Aunt Susan called to say Grandma would not want the family divided. Cousin Daniel said Grant had business experience and knew what was best for the property. My mother invited me to lunch and spent 40 minutes explaining how much stress Dad was under. Nobody asked how I was sleeping.
Nobody asked what it felt like to walk into Grandma's kitchen and remember she was gone. Nobody asked whether I wanted the responsibility. They asked only when I would surrender it. Grant sent contractors without permission. One measured the porch from the sidewalk. Another knocked and said he was scheduled to inspect the foundation. A locksmith arrived with an order bearing Grant's company logo. I turned all of them away. Dates, times, names, photographs, voicemails, letters. The binder grew. On January 8th, someone placed a notice on the front door stating the property was under a state review and should not be occupied. The notice looked official. It was not. The county seal had been copied from a public website. The document contained no case number, no clerk's signature, no issuing office. I photographed it before removing it. At work, I checked the formatting against real notices. 6 errors. Wrong typeface. Wrong margin. Outdated department name. Missing barcode. Incorrect statutory citation. The paper was designed to frighten anyone who did not know what a real record looked like. I knew. Celia sent it to the court administrator and local police. No criminal charge followed because no one could yet prove who had created it, but the incident entered the record. Grant called that night. "You have lost your mind." I saved the voicemail. "You are involving police over a piece of paper." Saved. "You are destroying this family because you need to feel important." Saved. "Call me before this becomes something you cannot undo." Saved. The next morning he left another message, calm, controlled. He said he had been emotional. He said he wanted to reset. He invited me to meet privately. I declined. His lawsuit was filed 9 days later. The petition claimed Grandma lacked capacity. It claimed I had isolated her. It claimed the deed was the product of undue influence. It claimed the house had historically been intended for equal division between her sons. It requested that the transfer be voided and the property returned to the estate. Grant signed the verification beneath the statement that everything was true to the best of his knowledge. I read that signature for a long time. Then I counted the pages. 42. I called Celia. "He did it," I said.
Yes. Does this trigger the condition? Possibly. Possibly? Courts decide facts. We present them. I looked at the black binder on Grandma's kitchen table. "What do you need?" "Everything." I brought it to her office that afternoon. She read the index first, then the Northline letter, the offers, the disguised company registration, the contractor notes, the false notice, the voicemails. She did not praise me. She looked almost angry. Not at me, at the pattern. "This is stronger than I expected." "Is that good?" "It is useful." She opened a drawer and removed a familiar object. The blue envelope. I stared at it. "You have it?" "Not the one from the safe." She placed it beside my binder. "This is the original retained in my office." "So the copy is still missing?" "Yes." "Do you know who took it?" "I know who had motive and access. That is not the same as proof." She tapped the envelope. "But the marked copy may surface." "What marking?" "A variation in the page numbering, and one sentence placed differently from every other version." I remembered Grandma's words. If the copies appeared in court, Celia would know where they came from. "What happens now?" Celia sat back. "Now your uncle has to support his allegations." And we respond, "Yes." With Grandma's medical records? Those. Her recorded statement. Witness declarations. The deed history. His acknowledgement. Your documentation. She paused. And whatever he chooses to reveal while trying to win. I did not understand that final part then. I would. People who build cases from entitlement rarely know when to stop talking. Grant's first mistake had been filing the lawsuit. His second would be believing the court was another family dinner, a place where everyone would move around the wound and pretend the room had always looked that way. The court D. I'd not move at the speed of anger. That was the first thing Grant hated about it. He was used to creating urgency.
a deadline before anyone could verify the numbers, an offer that would disappear by Friday, a family decision that had to be made before the next person entered the room. The court gave him dates: 30 days to produce documents, 21 days to answer written questions, 14 days to respond to a motion. No one cared that he was offended. No one treated his impatience as evidence. Celia filed our response to his petition on February 6th. It denied every claim and asked the court to enforce Grandma's estate condition if Grant continued the challenge. Attached were the 3 medical reports, the recorded deed, the trust amendment, Grant's signed acknowledgement, and part of the timeline from my binder. Not all of it. Celia believed in leaving room for people to commit themselves to a lie before showing them the document that disproved it. Grant's new attorney, Marcus Hale, sent us 46 written questions. They asked how often I visited Grandma, whether she had ever given me cash, whether I had helped schedule medical appointments, whether I had been present when she spoke to Celia, whether I had access to her medication, bank statements, telephone, email, safe, and keys. The questions were written to turn ordinary care into control. Every grocery trip became an opportunity for influence. Every appointment became isolation. Every folder became a weapon. I answered each question with dates. Yes, I had a key. Grandma gave it to me on June 22nd, 3 years before the deed was signed. Yes, I had the safe combination. She gave it to Dad and Grant, too. Yes, I helped schedule medical visits. The clinics also confirmed that Grandma spoke to each physician alone for part of every evaluation. No, I was not present when she recorded her estate statement. No, I never received money from her beyond reimbursements for purchases listed in the green folder. I included receipts: $2.89 for batteries, $34 for groceries, $112 for the furnace filter and service call. My ordinary life arrived in numbered exhibits. Grant requested my bank records. Celia objected to most of the request, but advised me to provide the limited records the court allowed. I did. There were no secret transfers, no large gifts, no mysterious deposits. My account showed rent, groceries, fuel, insurance, and a monthly transfer of $400 into savings. Grant had spent years presenting me as unsuccessful. Now he wanted the court to believe I had designed a complicated financial scheme to obtain a house. The record showed something less useful to him. I had lived within my means. I had saved. I had asked Grandma for nothing. His own document production was slower. First, he claimed the Northline letter of intent was privileged business material. It was not. Then he said Hawthorne Renewal LLC had been formed for several possible projects and was unrelated to Grandma's home. Public records showed the company had been created 2 days after I rejected his first purchase offer. The registered business description read Residential Redevelopment, Hawthorne District. When Celia asked for communications between Grant and Derek Walsh, Marcus produced 12 emails. The first was dated 8 months before Grandma died. Grant had written, "My mother is emotionally attached, but the family is aligned. We should be able to move quickly when the timing changes." The timing. That was the word he used for her death. In another email, Derek asked whether the owner had signed anything. Grant replied, "Not yet. The structure will pass through estate control and I will handle the disposition." I read that sentence at Celia's conference table. My hands stayed still. Inside, something cold settled into place. Grandma had been alive, sitting in the sunroom beneath the yellow quilt. Grant had already described her death as a change in timing and her house as a disposition he would handle. Celia watched me. Do not let his words choose your response. What response should I have? The truthful one. I'm angry. That can be true without becoming your strategy. I closed the email. This feels like revenge now. No. She tapped the binder. Revenge would be inventing pain because you want him to suffer. This is a record of pain he already chose.
I looked at Grandma's handwriting on one of the index pages. Truth should not need a hammer. It needs a place to stand. I want him to admit what he did. He may never do that. Then what is the point? The point is that his admission is not required for the truth to remain true. That was difficult to accept. Families train us to believe resolution comes when the person who hurt us finally understands. Sometimes they understand perfectly. They simply dislike the consequence more than they regret the act. Grant's deposition took place on March 11th. I did not attend, but I read the transcript afterward. 316 pages. Celia asked him when Grandma first promised him the house. He said it had always been understood. She asked for a date. He said there had been many conversations. She asked him to identify one. He mentioned a Christmas dinner in 2017. Grandma's calendar showed she spent that Christmas with my aunt in Ohio. He changed the year to 2018. That year, Grant and Natalie were in Arizona. He said he might be remembering a birthday. Celia asked whose. He could not say. He claimed Grandpa intended the house to pass to both sons. Celia showed him Grandpa's will, which left everything to Grandma without restriction. Grant said written documents did not capture family understanding. Then he said it again. Paper doesn't make you family. The court reporter placed the words into the transcript. For the first time, his refrain became part of an off-I seal record. Celia did not argue. She asked, "Does a signed acknowledgement show that you received information?" Grant answered, "Sometimes." "Does your signature appear on the acknowledgement marked Exhibit 14? "Yes." "Did you read it?" "I was rushed." "By whom?" "My mother's attorney." "Were you represented by your own attorney?" "Yes." "Did your attorney review it?" "I assume so." "Did you receive a copy?" "I believe I did." "Did you object to the condition before accepting the first trust payment?" "No." "Did you accept $55,000 from the trust?" "Yes." "Did you understand the payment was subject to the condition?" "I did not understand that my mother was using it to prevent me from protecting her estate." Celia waited. The transcript showed a 9-second pause. Then she asked, "Protecting it from whom?" Grant answered, "Mara." He said my name 27 times during the deposition. Grandma's name appeared 19 times. The house mattered to him. His grievance against me mattered more. Marcus questioned me 2 weeks later. The deposition was held in a conference room with no windows. A glass pitcher of water sat in the center of the table. I counted the ice cubes when I entered. 11. By the end, 4 remained. Marcus was not rude. Rudeness would have made him easier to resist. He was polite, slow, and skilled at placing assumptions inside questions. "When did you begin expecting to inherit the house?" "I did not expect it until Grandma told me." "When did she first suggest you might receive more than other family members?" "She did not describe it that way." "But you understood the house had greater value than the other gifts." "I understood she was leaving me her home." "You work with property values." "Yes." "So you knew exactly what it was worth." "I knew the appraisal amount." "And you knew your uncle wanted the property." "I knew he behaved as if he had authority over it." Marcus leaned back. "Is that a yes?" "No." "Wanting property and believing you own another person's decision are not the same thing." He looked at me for several seconds. Then he asked whether I had ever criticized Grant to Grandma. "Yes." His eyebrows rose. Celia remained still beside me. "What did you say?" "I told her that taking the tea service without permission was wrong. I told her that discussing her property with developers was wrong. I told her that sending people to photograph the house was wrong. So you repeatedly encouraged her to distrust him." "No." "I described what he did. You did not offer a more innocent interpretation?" "He offered those himself." Marcus changed direction. He asked whether I loved Grandma. Yes. Whether she loved me. Yes. Whether I wanted her approval. Yes. Whether I benefited from the deed. Yes. He arranged the questions as if love itself were suspicious when followed by inheritance. Then he placed a document in front of me. A photocopy. Blue-gray shadows appeared along the edges. I recognized the page numbering, 4 of 8. The phrase concerning unauthorized property claims was broken between lines in the unusual way Celia had described. My pulse changed. The stolen safe copy had surfaced. Marcus called it a family planning memorandum. He said Grant had found it among documents Grandma gave him. "Have you seen this before?" he asked. "Yes." "Where?" "In a blue envelope stored in Grandma's safe." Marcus's eyes moved toward Grant, who sat against the wall. Grant did not look at him. "When did you last see it?" "2 nights before Grandma died." "You are certain?" "Yes." "Did you remove it?" "No." "Did your grandmother give it to Grant?" "Not in my presence." "How do you know the copy in front of you came from the safe?" "The page arrangement was created specifically for that copy." Marcus paused. Grant shifted in his chair. Celia spoke. "We will require production of the complete document and information concerning how your client obtained it." Marcus looked at her. "It was voluntarily provided." "By Evelyn?" "That is my understanding." "When?" "I will confirm." He never confirmed. Instead, Grant submitted a sworn statement 3 days later. He claimed Grandma handed him the blue envelope during his final private visit. He said she wanted him to review the documents because she was reconsidering the estate plan. The statement created 2 problems for him. The first was timing. His final private visit occurred before the safe copy had been updated with the final recorded deed page. The document he produced contained that page. The second problem was Dad. Dad called me the evening after Grant's statement was filed. His voice sounded strange. "Mara, I need to tell you something." I stood in Grandma's kitchen, looking at the space where her table used to sit. I had moved it into the dining room while the floor was being repaired. "What?" "The morning Mom died." I waited. I saw Grant come downstairs. "From where?" "The 2nd floor." My hand tightened around the phone. "Why didn't you tell Celia?" "I didn't know anything was missing then." "You knew later." He said nothing. "Dad." I thought he might have gone to the bathroom. "The downstairs bathroom was open." "I know." "Did you see what he had?" "His coat was closed." "Did you ask him?" "No." "Why?" The answer took a long time. "Because I was afraid of what he would say." I closed my eyes. There it was again. Understanding had not been missing. Courage had. He filed a sworn statement saying Grandma gave him the envelope. I saw him leave the house with something inside his coat. "Did you see the envelope?" "No." "Then you cannot say it was the envelope." "I know." His voice broke. "But I can say he went upstairs after she died, and I can say he told me later that he had found something that could fix the will." I sat down. "When did he tell you that?" "The day after the funeral." "And you said nothing." "He said Mom had wanted him to have it." "Did you believe him?" "I wanted to." That answer hurt more than a lie. Because it meant Dad had seen enough to suspect the truth and had chosen the version that required the least courage. "What changed?" I read his statement. "And?" "He said Mom gave it to him while she was alive. That isn't what he told me." I looked toward the pantry door. The pencil marks from Dad's childhood were still there. 8 years old, 10, 12. A life measured in lines, preserved by the mother whose decisions he had failed to defend. "You need to tell Celia." "I will." "No, not will. Call her when we hang up." "I'm sorry." The words were quiet. Too late to prevent the lawsuit. Too late to protect me from months of accusations. Still true. I did not forgive him in that moment. I did not punish him either. "I believe you're sorry," I said. "Now do the part that cost you something." He called Celia. His affidavit was filed the following week. Grant responded by accusing Dad of being manipulated by me. Then he called him a coward in a family email sent to 11 relatives. Dad did not answer. For once, silence was not surrender. It was refusal. If you have ever watched the truth arrive late because someone finally found the courage they should have used earlier, comment the word record. Late honesty cannot erase the damage, but it can stop the lie from owning the ending. Stay with me, because the person who broke Grant's story open was not a family member. It was someone he had treated like background. His name was Leo Martin. The young employee who returned Grandma's tea service had continued working for Bennett Property Holdings. By the time of the lawsuit, he was 25 and managed property files for Grant. Celia learned his name from my account in the blue folder. She sent him a subpoena for documents connected to Hawthorne Street. 2 days later, Leo called her office and asked whether he could speak privately. He brought a flash drive. On it were emails, draft agreements, photographs, and a document titled Occupancy Notice, Hawthorne. The false notice from Grandma's front door. Leo admitted he had created it using a county template Grant emailed him. Grant told him the notice was not meant to be filed. It was only supposed to make me believe the property was frozen while the estate was reviewed. Leo had printed it on the office machine. He had also prepared Hawthorne Renewal LLC's registration papers and forwarded photographs of Grandma's property to Northline. "Why did you keep everything?" Celia asked him during his deposition. Leo's answer was simple. Mr. Bennett blamed employees when projects went wrong. So Leo saved instructions. Grant had taught someone else the value of a record. The most important email was dated December 15th, the day after Grandma died. Grant wrote to Leo at 11:08 in the morning. "Hold all Hawthorne materials. I may have found the document we need. Do not contact Northline until I confirm title control." He had found the document, not received it months earlier, found it the morning after her death. His sworn statement said otherwise. Marcus Hale withdrew from the case 8 days after Leo's deposition. The notice gave no reason. Grant hired another attorney named Robert Keene, an older man with a reputation for aggressive probate litigation. Robert requested more time. The court gave him 20 days. Grant used the delay to call relatives. Aunt Susan called me again. This time she did not ask me to sell. She asked whether Grant might go to jail. "I don't know," I said. "Would you want that? This case is about the house and the trust." "But the envelope—" "I did not file criminal charges. Could you?" "I'm not discussing that." She became quiet. Then she said, "Your grandmother would hate this." I looked around the sunroom. The tomato pots were empty. Winter light lay across the floorboards. Grandma prepared for this. That does not mean she wanted it. No, it means she knew who might choose it. My mother arrived unannounced later that afternoon. She carried a casserole in a glass dish. I almost laughed. In our family, baked pasta appeared whenever truth became too difficult to carry barehanded. She placed it on the counter. "I don't know what to do." "You do not have to do anything. Your uncle is falling apart. He filed the case. He says his lawyers failed him. He has had 3. He says Leo stole private company records. Leo responded to a subpoena. He says Paul betrayed him. Dad told the truth." Mom pressed her fingers to her forehead. "You make everything sound so simple." "It is not simple. You always have an answer." "No, I have documents." "That is the same thing to you." I looked at her. "No, Mom. Documents do not answer everything. They stop people from changing what happened." She sank into a kitchen chair. For a while she stared at the casserole dish. Then she asked, "Did Evelyn really expect this?" "Yes." "Did she think Paul would help Grant?" "She thought he might." Mom's eyes filled. "She loved him." "I know. She loved both of them." "I know." "Then why make them sign that condition?" "Because love did not make her blind." Mom wiped her cheek. "I kept thinking if you sold, everyone could calm down." "And what would that teach Grant?" "That family matters more than property." "No, it would teach him that pressure works." She looked toward the hallway. "I told him to stop." "When?" "Yesterday." It was the first time she had said it without attaching a request for me. "What did he say?" "That I had chosen you." "And what did you say?"
Her mouth trembled. I said no. I had finally stopped choosing the person who frightened me most. I sat across from her, that way,
as not courage arriving cleanly. It was frightened, late, and tired, but it was courage. Mom left the casserole. It stayed in my refrigerator for 4 days before I threw it away. Neither of us mentioned it again. The hearing was scheduled for June 18th. By then, 6 months had passed since Grandma died. The house had moved through winter into spring. The silver maple opened its leaves. The sunroom warmed. I planted tomatoes in Grandma's clay pots. I did not move into the house full-time yet. The lawsuit made every room feel watched. I slept there 2 nights a week and at my apartment the rest. Celia advised me to maintain the property exactly as Grandma had. Taxes paid, insurance current, repairs documented, no major changes. Grant's side hired a medical expert who never examined Grandma. He reviewed selected records and wrote that her heart condition, age, and medication could have made her vulnerable to influence. Under questioning, he admitted the 3 physicians who actually met her found no loss of legal capacity. He admitted he had not watched the recorded statement. He admitted Robert had sent him only part of the file. The opinion became smaller each time he answered honestly. Our witnesses were ordinary. Grandma's doctor, the geriatric specialist, the notary, Celia's assistant, Derek Walsh, Leo, Dad, a county recording officer, a trust officer from Bellwether Community Bank. No one delivered a speech. They simply placed one fact beside another. That was enough. The night before the hearing, I stayed at Hawthorne Street. At 10:30, I sat on the 3rd stair, the one that creaked. Grandma used to say Grandpa refused to fix it because every house needed a way to announce who was awake. I pressed my palm against the wooden rail. For months, Grant had described me as calculating, cold, manipulative. He said I had waited beside a dying woman for a property transfer. Part of me feared that strangers might believe him even after seeing the documents. Celia had warned me that truth did not control every interpretation. People brought their own history into a courtroom, their own beliefs about daughters and sons, caregivers and inheritance, quiet women and ambitious men. I counted the spindles in the railing, 14 from the landing to the 1st floor. I had counted them as a child. I had counted them the night Grandma told me about the house. I counted them again. Then I went upstairs and opened the safe, 6, 22, 41. The blue envelope was gone, but the space it had occupied remained visible in my mind. I took out Grandma's wedding ring, not to wear, just to hold. The gold had thinned beneath her finger over 58 years. Paper did not make us family. Grant had been right about that. The folders did not make Grandma love me. The deed did not create the Wednesdays in her kitchen. The trust condition did not explain the way she touched my knee beneath the Thanksgiving tea.
Abel. But when someone tried to rewrite that love as manipulation, the paper remembered what he wanted everyone else to forget. I returned the ring to its box, closed the safe, and slept. At 8:00 a.m. the next morning, I entered the county courthouse through the east doors. The security officer inspected my bag, 2 binders, a bottle of water, a packet of tissues my mother had placed there without telling me. The courtroom was on the 3rd floor. At 8:12, Celia arrived with 2 rolling cases. At 8:19, Dad and Mom entered together. Dad looked older than he had 6 months earlier. Mom hugged me. I allowed it. At 8:27, Natalie arrived alone. She sat behind me. At 8:34, Grant walked in with Robert Keene. He wore a dark blue suit and the expression he used at business meetings when he wanted everyone to believe the result had already been decided. He did not look at Dad. He looked at me, then at the binders. At 8:51, the clerk asked us to stand. Judge Helen Carver entered. She was in her late 50s, with short brown hair and reading glasses attached to a thin black cord. She reviewed the case file before speaking. At 9:05, Robert began his opening statement. He said the case was about protection. He described Grant as a devoted son concerned that an elderly mother had been isolated by a granddaughter with specialized knowledge of property transfers. He said the unusual estate condition showed fear and control. He said Grandma's natural heirs had been punished for asking reasonable questions.
He called the deed suspicious. He called my involvement extensive. He said Grant sought fairness, not personal gain. I wrote the phrase on a yellow pad. Not personal gain. Then I placed the pen down. At 9:24, Celia stood. She did not describe me as devoted. She did not call Grant greedy. She said the case was about choice. An adult property owner made a decision, documented it repeatedly, confirmed her capacity, warned her beneficiaries, and created consequences for interference. One beneficiary accepted money under those terms. Then he challenged the transfer, attempted to arrange a sale before and after the owner's death, and supported his case with a document removed from her safe. This court does not need to decide which relative loved Evelyn Bennett more, Celia said. It needs to decide whether her lawful decision may be replaced by the expectation of the person who refused to accept it. She sat down at 9:31. The medical testimony came first. Grandma's regular doctor described her heart condition and mental clarity. The geriatric specialist explained the evaluations. Robert asked whether stress could affect judgment. The doctor said yes. He asked whether illness could make a person dependent on a caregiver. Yes. He asked whether Grandma relied on me. The doctor answered carefully. She relied on Ms. Bennett for transportation and organization. I saw no evidence that she surrendered decision-making. At 10:18, the neurologist's report was admitted. At 10:42, the court watched part of Grandma's recorded statement. The screen stood near the witness box. Grandma appeared wearing the blue cardigan with the loose button. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Her voice filled the courtroom. Celia's recorded voice asked why she was leaving the house to me. Grandma looked directly toward the camera. Because Mara cared for the life inside the house without treating the house as payment. No one moved. The recording continued. Grant believes my choice is an obstacle to be solved. Mara understands it is mine to make. Celia asked whether I had requested the property. No. Whether I had threatened to stop helping if I did not receive it. No. Whether Grandma feared Grant. She paused. I do not fear my son. I fear what he permits himself to justify. Grant stared at the screen. The cruel confidence left his face, only briefly. Then it returned. At 11:16, Derek Walsh testified. He explained the hotel meeting and the Northline discussions. Robert asked whether letters of intent were binding. No. Whether developers often explored properties before owners committed. Yes. Whether Grant ever signed Grandma's name. No. Robert looked pleased. Then Celia asked Derek what Grant had told him about family authority. He said the family was aligned and that he would control the sale after the estate transition. Did Evelyn Bennett appear aligned at the hotel? No. Did she authorize a sale? No. Did she reject it? Clearly. Did Mr. Bennett continue discussing the property with Northline afterward? Derek looked at Grant. Yes. At any point did he tell you the house had been transferred to Mara Bennett? Not until after the will meeting. What did he say then? Derek hesitated. The judge told him to answer. He said the transfer would not survive. At 11:58, the court recessed for lunch. Grant walked past me in the hallway. He stopped near the elevator. You could still end this. I looked at the clock above the doors. 2:02. How? Agree to sell. We divide the proceeds. Everyone walks away. You testified through your petition that Grandma was incompetent. I did what I had to do. The sentence came easily. What do you have to do now? His eyes hardened. Protect what belongs to the family. The house belongs to me. For now. Dad stood several feet away. He heard every word. Grant noticed him. Are you proud of this? He asked. Dad's face tightened. No. Grant smiled. Then Dad continued. I'm ashamed it took me so long to stop helping you. The elevator arrived. Grant stepped inside alone.
The doors closed. At 1:07 p.m., the hearing resumed. The trust officer testified that Grant signed the acknowledgement and accepted his first $55,000 distribution. The transfer form included the words subject to all conditions of the Bennett family trust. Grant's signature appeared beneath them. Robert argued that accepting a benefit did not mean Grant surrendered his right to challenge wrongdoing. The judge said that issue would be considered with the full evidence. At 1:42, the county recording officer authenticated the deed. Recorded November 2nd, properly signed, properly notarized. No later alteration. The original remained in the county system. Robert displayed the copy Grant claimed Grandma gave him. He pointed to a difference in the formatting and suggested the estate documents had existed in several inconsistent forms. Celia stood. "This is the marked safe copy." Robert objected. The judge asked for foundation. Celia called her assistant, Joanne Price. Joanne explained that she prepared 4 controlled copies: office copy, client delivery copy, medical review copy, safe copy. Each had a minor formatting difference so its source could be identified if separated from the envelope. The version Grant produced was the safe copy. Robert asked whether Grandma could have given it to him. "Yes," Joanne said, "but not on the date he claims." "Why not?" "The final page in that copy was inserted after his last private visit." The courtroom became very still. Robert looked at Grant. Grant stared ahead. At 2:09, Dad took the witness stand. His hands shook when he swore to tell the truth. Celia asked what he saw the morning Grandma died. "I saw Grant come down from the 2nd floor. Did he usually use the upstairs bathroom?" "No." "Was another bathroom available?" "Yes." "Did you see anything in his hands?" "No." "Did you notice anything else?" His coat was closed, bulky on one side. "What did he tell you the following day?" "That he had found something that could fix the will." "Did he say your mother gave it to him?" "No." Robert stood slowly. "Mr. Bennett, you have received a trust benefit under the same condition your brother challenges." "Yes." "So you benefit financially if he forfeits his share." Dad looked toward Grant. "I wish he had taken the money and left Mara alone." "That was not my question." "I know. Do you benefit?" "My payment does not increase if he loses his." "Are you angry with him?" "Yes." "Did Mara ask you to testify?" "No." "Did she pressure you?" "No." "Why did you wait months to disclose this?" Dad's eyes lowered. "Because I was a coward." No one expected the answer. Robert paused. Dad continued. "I spent most of my life making what Grant did smaller, so I would not have to stand against him. I did it when he took over our father's business decisions. I did it when he measured Mom's property. I did it when he asked for the plans. I did it when he attacked my daughter." Grant's face reddened. Robert interrupted. "Your Honor, the witness is exceeding the question." Judge Carver looked at Dad. "Answer only what is asked." Dad nodded. Robert asked, "Your delay makes your memory less reliable, Doe." "Was it not? My delay makes my character less reliable, not my memory." At 2:37, Dad stepped down. He did not look at Grant. At 2:45, Leo Martin was called. He explained the false notice, the company filings, and the emails. Robert attacked his motive. Had Leo left Bennett Property Holdings after a salary dispute? Yes. Was he angry? Yes. Had he copied company records? Yes, after receiving instructions to preserve documents connected to the subpoena. Had he ever been disciplined? Once, for missing a deadline. Had Grant refused him a promotion? Yes. Robert turned toward the judge, a resentful former employee with copied files. Then Celia asked Leo to open the December 15th email. He read Grant's words aloud. "I may have found the document we need." "Did you alter this email?" "No." "Was it produced from the company's own server?" "Yes." Did Mr. Bennett tell you where he found the document? He said it had been in the house. When? The morning Mrs. Bennett died. Grant whispered something to Robert. Robert's face tightened. Celia asked one final question. Why did you cooperate? Leo looked toward Grant. Because he told me that if the notice caused trouble, he would say I made it on my own. Grant shook his head. Leo continued. I knew he would do it because he had done that before. At 3:18, Grant took the stand. Robert guided him carefully. Grant described himself as a son trying to protect his mother's legacy. He said the North Line discussions were exploratory. The offers to me were attempts to preserve family peace. The lawsuit was filed only after serious concerns arose regarding Grandma's capacity. He denied taking the envelope. He said Grandma gave it to him. He said Leo misunderstood their conversations. He said Dad had always resented his success. He said I had turned ordinary misunderstandings into a campaign. Robert asked why Grandma might leave the house to me. Grant looked directly at the judge. Because Mara controlled access. Did your mother ever tell you she intended to exclude you? No. Did she ever accuse you of trying to steal from her? No. Did she understand the value of the house? I don't believe she fully did. Who did? I did. The answer came too quickly. Robert moved on. At 3:46, Celia began cross-examination. She approached with no papers in her hands. Mr. Bennett, you testified that your mother never accused you of trying to take her property. Correct. Did she demand the return of a silver tea service you removed without permission? I borrowed it for appraisal. Did she threaten to report it missing? She overreacted. Did she instruct you not to photograph, advertise, appraise, or negotiate over the house? She was being influenced. That was not my question. Yes. Did you receive the instruction by certified mail? Yes. Is that your signature confirming delivery? Yes. After receiving it, did you continue discussions with Northline? I explored options. Did you create Hawthorne Renewal LLC? My office did. Did you submit an offer through that company without identifying your connection? It was a business entity. Did you send contractors to the property to estimate necessary work? Did Mara authorize them? No. Did the estate authorize them? No. Did you ask an employee to create an unofficial occupancy notice using a copied county seal? No. Leo's email instruction appeared on the courtroom screen. Grant looked at it. I do not recall that message. It came from your account. Employees had access. Which employee? I don't know. Was the message sent from your phone? I don't know. Did you investigate unauthorized access? No. Did you discipline anyone? No. Celia changed the display. The trust acknowledgement appeared. Did you sign this? Yes. Did your attorney review it? He said it was standard. Did you understand that challenging the house transfer could forfeit your remaining trust benefit? I understood that my mother did not want unnecessary conflict. Did you accept $55,000 after signing it? Yes. Did you file this lawsuit afterward? Yes. Did you ask Mara to sell after the will meeting? I offered a solution. Did she reject it? Yes. Did you increase the offer? Yes. Did you ask relatives to pressure her? I discussed the situation with family. Did you tell Diane Bennett that Mara was destroying the family? I may have expressed concern. Did you tell Paul Bennett that he had to choose between his brother and his daughter? Grant looked toward Dad. I don't remember the exact words. Dad's face did not change. Celia walked back to her table and picked up one sheet. Mr. Bennett, when did your mother give you the blue envelope? During my final private visit. What date? December 6th. Did the envelope contain the final recorded deed page? I believe so. The page inserted on December 9th? Grant's mouth opened. No answer came. Celia waited. 3 seconds. 5. 8. The counting tick in my mind steadied me. Grant looked toward Robert. Robert could not answer for him. Finally, Grant said, "I may be mistaken about the date. When did she give it to you?" "I don't remember." "Did you tell your brother you found a document after her death?" "No." "Did you email Leo Martin that you may have found the document you needed?" "I was referring to something else." "What?" "I don't recall." "Did you go upstairs on the morning your mother died?" "I may have." "Why?" "To use the bathroom." "Was the downstairs bathroom occupied?" "I don't remember." "Did you open the safe?" "No." "Did you know the combination?" "Yes." "Did you remove the envelope?" "No." Celia placed both hands on the lectern. "Mr. Bennett, your petition states that Evelyn Bennett lacked the capacity to understand the deed." "Yes." "Your purchase offers state that Mara held valid title and could sell the house to you." Grant stared at her. Celia displayed his first offer. The letter began, "As the present owner of 18 Hawthorne Street, you have the authority to transfer the property." The words remained on the screen. "You wrote this before filing your petition?" "Yes." "So when you wanted Mara to sell to you, you recognized her title." "I was attempting settlement. But when she refused, you claimed the title was invalid." "I obtained more information." "What information?" "The envelope." "The envelope you say your mother gave you before your offer?" The room changed. Grant realized it. His attorney realized it. The judge leaned slightly forward. Grant tried to answer. "I did not understand its significance at first." "You had the document but accepted the deed when it benefited your purchase attempt." "No." "You acknowledged the transfer in writing." "For negotiation." "You challenged it only after Mara refused to sell." "I challenged it because it was wrong." "Wrong for whom?" "For the family." "Your mother was family." Grant's face broke, not into tears, into anger. The careful voice disappeared. "She did not know what Mara was doing." Celia remained still. What was Mara doing? She was waiting. For what? The house. The words rose. Mara sat there with her folders and her little county job and made herself necessary. She made Mom suspicious of everyone. She knew exactly what she was doing. "I felt Natalie's hand touch the back of my bench." Grant continued. "Mom would never have done this without her." Celia asked, "Did your mother need Mara to tell her you were negotiating with developers?" She misunderstood that. "Did Mara make you remove the tea service?" "I was protecting it." "Did Mara make you send photographers?" "I was planning." "Did Mara make you sign the trust condition?" "I had no choice." "You could have refused the money." Grant laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Why should I refuse what belonged to me?" There it was. The whole case, not hidden inside legal language, not softened by family concern. What belonged to me? Celia's voice remained calm. "Why did it belong to you?" "I was her son, and Mara was her granddaughter." "That is not the same." "Because—" Grant looked at me. The old sentence arrived. The one he had used at Thanksgiving, on the phone, at the birthday dinner, in his deposition. "Paper doesn't make you family." Celia nodded. "No, it does not." She picked up the recorded deed. "But it does show who owns a house." No one moved. Grant's face emptied. Celia continued. "It shows what Evelyn Bennett chose. Your family relationship did not give you the right to replace her signature with your expectation." She returned to the table. No further questions. At 4:17, Grant stepped down. He passed within 6 feet of me. He did not look like the man who entered that morning. The judge asked both sides whether they wished to present further evidence. Robert requested permission to recall the medical expert. Denied. Celia offered Grandma's complete recorded statement and the remaining index documents. Admitted. At 4:31, closing arguments began. Robert said the case involved a family fractured by suspicion. He argued the conditions should not be used to punish a son for seeking judicial review. He said Grant's conduct before Grandma's death was imperfect, but motivated by concern for the property. He said the envelope dispute did not prove theft. He asked the judge to invalidate the deed or, at minimum, preserve Grant's trust benefit. Celia spoke last. She did not ask the court to decide whether Grant stole the envelope. She said it was unnecessary. The case could be resolved through conduct no one disputed. He signed the condition, accepted the money, acknowledged my title when trying to buy the house, pressured me after being told not to, used relatives and disguised companies, continued a developer relationship Grandma rejected, then filed the exact challenge the condition prohibited. This was not one emotional mistake made during grief, Celia said. It was a sequence. Evelyn Bennett anticipated the sequence because she had already watched its beginning. The judge took a recess. At 5:02, we were called back. Judge Carver read her decision from the bench. Grandma possessed legal capacity. The deed was valid. The evidence did not support undue influence. My assistance was open, documented, and consistent with care, not control. Grant's claim that Grandma promised him the house was unsupported. His conduct showed a sustained attempt to obtain, market, or control the property against her stated wishes. The no contest condition applied. By filing the petition and continuing it after receiving the estate evidence, Grant had violated the condition. His remaining trust benefit was forfeited. The court also ordered him to pay part of the estate's legal costs because several claims had been maintained after discovery showed they lacked factual support. The judge did not rule on how he obtained the blue envelope. She referred the issue to the estate administrator for any separate action considered appropriate. Then she looked at Grant. A familial relationship may explain expectation, she said. It does not create ownership. At 5:14, the hearing ended. Grant had entered the courthouse expecting to gain a house worth nearly $500,000. He left without the house, without the remaining $220,000 in his trust, without the development agreement, and without the family's ability to pretend his actions were only misunderstandings. Outside the courtroom, he approached Dad. "You did this." Dad looked at him. "No. You lied about me. I told the truth late. That is worse." "Maybe." Grant turned toward Mom. She stepped closer to Dad. "Not much." One step. It was enough. Natalie stood beside me. Grant looked at his daughter. "Are you coming?" She shook her head. "I'll call you tomorrow." His face changed. The rejection was small, private. It hurt him more than the judge's words. He walked toward the stairs. Robert followed several steps behind. Grant never looked back. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They came in packets. The first was a letter from Northline terminating all discussions with Bennett Property Holdings concerning Hawthorne Street. Derek had testified truthfully, but his company wanted no further connection to the dispute. The second was an invoice from Grant's attorneys. I never saw the total. Dad heard it was more than $90,000. The third was the trust notice confirming forfeiture. Grant appealed that decision. The appeal was dismissed 3 months later. The fourth consequence was quieter. Relatives stopped asking me to sell. Some apologized. Most revised their memories. Aunt Susan said she had always been uncomfortable with Grant's behavior. Cousin Daniel claimed he never understood the full situation. I did not argue. People often want credit for recognizing the truth after it becomes expensive to deny. I gave them no credit. I also gave them no fight. Natalie visited the house the week after the hearing. She brought Grandma's pearl earrings in a small velvet pouch. "They were left to me," she said. "I know that. You should keep them." "I will." I just wanted to see where she kept them. We went upstairs to the sewing room. I showed her the saucer Grandma used on her last birthday and the jewelry box in the safe. Natalie stood beside the dress form. "My father says you destroyed him." "I did not." "I know." She looked toward the closet. "Did he take the envelope?" "I believe he did." "Will you report him?" "The estate administrator has the evidence." "That isn't what I asked." I closed the safe. "No, I'm not asking for more." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because the record already protected what Grandma wanted. I don't need another punishment to prove I won." Natalie's eyes filled. "He loved her." "I know."
That makes it worse. Yes. We sat in the sunroom for an hour. She told me Grant had lost 2 business partnerships after the hearing, not because of the inheritance dispute itself, but because Leo's records showed a pattern of blaming employees and overstating authority. His company did not collapse. Life rarely arranges consequences that neatly. He still owned property. He still had money. He still believed he had been wronged. But the room no longer rearranged itself around him. That was enough. Dad came to see me in August. He brought Grandpa's toolbox and placed it on the kitchen floor. Grant had this, he said. Why? He took it after the funeral. Of course he did. Dad almost smiled, then his face became serious. I should have protected you. Yes. The answer surprised him. He had expected reassurance. I did not offer it. I kept telling myself I was keeping the family together, he said. You were keeping Grant comfortable. I know. You let him use you. I know. You gave him the plans. Yes. You warned him about the condition. Yes. You saw him come downstairs and stayed quiet. His eyes lowered. Yes. The old version of me would have stopped. I would have softened the truth before it cut too deeply. Grandma had taught me better. I needed a father, I said. Not a messenger from your brother. Dad cried then, quietly. I let him. After a while, he wiped his face. Can you forgive me? Not today. He nodded. It was the first time he accepted an answer he did not like without trying to change it. That mattered. He began helping with the house, not as payment, not as a path back into my good opinion. He came when invited. He fixed the porch rail. He replaced the cracked pane in the basement window. He stopped when I said stop. Forgiveness did not arrive in one conversation. It grew slowly through behavior that did not demand to be praised. Mom asked for the family photographs. I gave her copies of almost everything and let her choose several originals. She took the wedding portrait, school pictures of Dad and Grant, and a photograph of Grandma holding Natalie as a baby. She left the picture from Grandma's 83rd birthday. The one taken before Grant showed the rendering. I can't look at it, she said. I kept it, not because it was happy, because it was true. Grant contacted me once after the appeal failed. His message was 4 sentences. He said he wanted the childhood items stored in the house. He said some belonged to him personally. He said lawyers did not need to be involved. He said he expected a reasonable response. I asked Celia to arrange a supervised pickup. The list included his baseball glove, school yearbooks, a model train, letters Grandpa had written to him in college, and a wooden box containing childhood medals. One item was disputed. Grandpa's watch. The will left it to Dad. Grant claimed Grandpa had promised it to him. Dad could have fought. Instead, he brought the watch to Hawthorne Street on the morning of the pickup. I want him to have it, he said. Why? Because I don't want another object deciding who we become. At 10 o'clock, Grant arrived with Robert. He entered the house for the first time since the day Grandma died. He stood in the front hall and looked around. Nothing had been demolished. Nothing divided. The maple tree moved in the wind outside. The 3rd step creaked when I walked upstairs. We brought the boxes down one by one. Grant checked each item against the list. When Dad handed him the watch, he stared at it. This was left to you. Yes. Why are you giving it to me? Because you wanted it. Grant looked suspicious. Even mercy appeared dangerous to someone who understood every exchange as leverage. Dad closed Grant's fingers around the watch. It is not an apology, he said. And it does not change what happened. Grant's face tightened. Then keep it. No. Dad stepped back. I'm done making objects carry conversations we refuse to have. Grant placed the watch in his pocket. He signed the inventory receipt. Before leaving, he looked toward the kitchen. Are you selling? No. You cannot keep this place forever. I don't need forever. What are you going to do with it? Live here. He laughed softly. Not because it was funny, because contempt was the only shield he had left. You always wanted to prove you were better than us. No. I opened the front door. I wanted you to leave the house alone. He stood on the threshold. For one moment, I thought he might say something honest, that he missed Grandma, that he had been wrong, that he had confused expectation with love. Instead, he looked at the signed inventory in my hand. Paper doesn't make you family. The refrain returned one final time. I looked at him. No. But family should not need paper to make them respect the word no. He had no answer. He left. That was the last time he entered the house. I moved in permanently that October. I kept the yellow kitchen cabinets. I repaired the porch. I replaced the cracked sink because water had begun leaking into the cabinet below. I left the pencil marks inside the pantry door. I kept the tea service even with the scratch, especially with the scratch. The blue folders went into the safe. My black binder joined them. 6/22/41. I changed the locks but not the combination. In the sunroom, I planted rosemary and tomatoes. Dad helped repair the windows. Mom brought curtains and asked before hanging them. Natalie visited on Fridays when she could. We did not pretend the family had healed completely. Some things do not return to their former shape. That is not always tragedy. Sometimes the former shape was the problem. The following spring, I received a letter from Grant. Not handwritten, typed. He did not apologize. He said the court had misunderstood his intentions. He said family disputes were complicated. He said he hoped time would create perspective. I placed the letter in the binder, not because I planned to use it, because I no longer needed to argue with words that refused responsibility. A record is not only a weapon for court. Sometimes it is a boundary for the mind. It reminds you that the event happened the way it happened, even when someone returns later with softer language. Grandma left me a house with one rule: leave my decision alone. Grant broke that rule in court because he believed being family placed him above the choice she had made. The court did not punish him for being angry. It did not punish him for feeling disappointed. It held him to the condition he signed, the money he accepted, the claims he filed, and the conduct he chose. That difference mattered. Justice was not watching him lose. Justice was knowing I did not have to surrender what Grandma gave me just to make his behavior easier for everyone else to live with. I used to think strength meant remaining calm enough that no one could accuse me of causing trouble. Now I know calm is not the same as compliance. Dignity does not require silence. And peace that depends on one person giving up the truth is not peace. It is surrender with better manners. Paper did not make Grandma and me family. It did something else. It carried her voice into a room she knew she would not live to enter. It remembered her choice when grief, fear, and entitlement tried to rename it. That was the real inheritance. Not the brick walls, not the land, not even the key. The right to trust what I knew, hold the boundaries she prepared, and stop apologizing because another person disliked the word no. That is my story. Comment the word truth if you believe quiet people deserve to be heard before they are forced to produce the receipts. Subscribe and stay for more stories where patience is not weakness, dignity does not need to shout, and the record finally speaks for the person everyone underestimated.